Hello world, it's your friendly neighborhood data miner, and today we're going to talk about, will the VA pay for data analytics certification? Today we have a very special guest. His name is John Lipkea. John is a data analyst and Air Force veteran. We went to school together at Gonzaga University and studied management of information systems. John is a font of knowledge, and I am highly confident at the end of this period of instruction, you will be able to take what you've learned and apply it to your brand or business, and that's called value. And because of that, you should like this video. Remember that sharing is caring. Please leave comments because they improve ranking and add prominence. Subscribing is what winners do, but smashing the bell is what legends do. This channel breeds legends. But first, AI news. Google's DeepMind is a tool that predicts what different compounds can be created. So far, it has created a structure of over 1,000 compounds, and these are just predictions. How accurate the predictions are yet to be revealed, or whether or not somebody is going to go forth with manufacturing these compounds is a different story. And we're live. Tell the world about you. Hello, world.
Hello, world. A little Python joke.
Yep, it is a Python joke. I like it. I got a lot of nerd humor going.
Yeah, I'm not a nerd by trade, but, well, I kind of am.
You are now.
We can discuss that later if you want.
Well, no, tell me about your capstone that you did.
So I've just completed my IBM certification in data analytics through the VA program. So there's a lot of background to that, but that's kind of what I just did yesterday. And capstone project demands that you put together a presentation and present your entire body of your analysis from raw data to all the way to super cool visualizations on a dashboard on the cloud, right? So a lot of work in between there. I think in the data analytics world, you kind of chop that up in little pieces and people do parts of it, but they make you do the whole thing. So you kind of get an idea about what you like about that whole process and maybe where you want to go in the future.
Yeah.
But what we were just talking about earlier is you title your podcast after the podcast.
Oh, yeah. So
right?
I title it after the podcast because, I mean, I get the gist of what the conversation is. And like I said, if I was just to do interview with John Lipkea, it's not going to match search intent.
Correct. And that brings us back to my story about data analytics, right? Mm-hmm. One of the first things that you have to do for your capstone is write your executive summary. No. No. How about let's just see how the presentation's going to go, and and so what you want to do, you don't write your summary first. Right? Yeah. And this is what you do in your podcasting, right? You're kind of like, what is this about? Mm-hmm. Where does this journey take me, right? And it's a journey. And then you write the summary about the journey, right? So that's a little conundrum that people get into when they're doing presentations or research or whatever. You're like, well, it's sort of like when you're researching, it's sort of like writing your results first. Like that might bias you a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because your whole journey will be like, I got to get to what my results want. I want my results to be because I wrote that as my executive summary. But we're kind of beating that to death a little bit, but but it's kind of silly because you're preparing your presentation. You're preparing how you're going to sell this story or how you're going to tell the story is a better word. And then you first have to come up with the end. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The writers probably do that a lot too. They're like, I'm not writing that quite yet. We'll see where this journey takes us. And data analytics, you can't preform your journey.
That's true.
It's results, right?
That's true. It's what the data shows. And so like every blog I do, after every data exploration and model I create, when I go to make the blog, the last thing I make is the abstract. It's not until it's totally done that and even my essays, when I'm done with an essay, it's not until I don't write the beginning paragraph until it's all done. And I realize, okay, I went into this thinking this, but my thoughts changed after all the sources were considered. and now it's changed dramatically. But this is what I can, or this is how I can formulate it. So in your capstone, what sort of data were you playing with?
I was playing with Stack Overflow's survey of developers. So we're trying to figure out, what's the future for developer and developer skills as technology evolves rapidly. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of easy to?
Yeah. Okay.
A little bit easy to digest, but it kind of broke down like what are the platforms that a lot of developers are using? What are the platforms that they want to use? And that's kind of how the survey went. What are the languages? What are the languages they want to use? What are they? And so 4 main categories. It was platforms you're using, languages you're using, web frames you're using for web development, and what was the third one? Database. Mm-hmm. So databases and database software that you're using. What we're seeing out there and what the data was showing, it was about 88,000 Stack Overflow developers that kind of somehow got selected by through some criteria that Stack Overflow had. You kind of get back into the methodology, and all over the world. So when that stuff comes back, what we only did, because I think we could have in the capstone analyze the entire data set, but they kind of gave us a 10%. So you're sampling off of that. Mm. And when you sample off of it, you might not get the same results as the original, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you rather have the population of the survey, not the sample of the survey, if it's available to you. And it was, but I think that was for reasons like IBM's kind of setting this up, right? So they're like, I don't want people to go look at the results and mimic them. Mm. It's available online. It's an open survey, right? So everyone gets the same answers, right? So we take 10% and we go through it, and what you start to see is a lot of open source database management systems, open source languages, Python, MongoDB for database, and those things are becoming really popular with developers. And so I think some of the reasons are they offer a lot of benefits. One is cost, right? Cost benefits, proprietary languages and management systems cost money. And you have to kind of lock in contracts on those things too. Mm-hmm. That's not moving fast enough. It's too expensive, and it's not moving fast enough for current technology that's being developed. Like, how do I, you know what I mean? Like, maybe if I'm locked in with Microsoft SQL and some evolution, and I'm trying to get into AI, and maybe the evolution of those products aren't keeping up. They're not fast enough. So what you see is a lot of relevancy in open source, a very big communities kind of helping each other out too. Mm-hmm. That might be the future, right? It might be the future, and it's pointing that way right now. And that's what the research, and that's what coming on my capstone was about. Interesting, huh? Yeah. I'm not a data analyst. I'm a business guy.
I would say you are, given your background.
I'm going to keep saying it, but after a while, you become one, right? We all have our different journeys and paths, and I learned that through the IBM course too, because they put you in front of different people from different professions, and so it's not just one, right? There's not. You're going to see data analysts in every profession and every part of every profession, just to stay competitive.
Yeah, and I've noticed on the world of, well, first off, let me go back before I forget, because I have a lot of interest now in what you were studying with that data set, was because I've been looking into this. This has been an issue for me, because I've been like, how do I deploy a machine learning model? Okay, I have plenty of Jupyter notebooks and models. How do I get it to a website? And so I've been having this issue,
right?
Like, for the world to know, if you want to deploy a machine learning model to Squarespace, it's not going to happen.
Right.
I learned that the hard way, so I'm eating it. in cost right now to keep up a Squarespace website when I could be going to WordPress for half the price.
Right.
So when I do start showcasing models, I'll probably just build another website and showcase it on a WordPress website because it kind of can get that. But if not, it's like back to management information systems. You have to type up your own HTML code.
Right.
So to drive somebody, I mean, you could have like a Squarespace website, but I still have to, and I just learned this, after I create the model, I have to deploy it to this thing called either Flask or Django.
Right. I've used some Flask stuff in our our research too.
Cool. Yeah.
But some of that stuff it'll start to evolve on you so quickly. Mm-hmm. I'd be like, we're not using Flask anymore. That's too slow, or it's too hard for some of my research. Also was from using some other systems and learning about what we kind of run across. What's a database? I'm trying to think about it here. Hold on a second. I'm trying to think about. Oh, it was Hadoop clusters.
Yeah, Hadoop. Okay.
Yeah, and so like when I start to learn about that, and I wanted to learn more about it, and then so they're talking. You can't really go through in a 1 semester course setting up a Hadoop cluster because it's its own thing, right? So if I want to put several machines together, right, and share that space and host big data, right? Mm-hmm. I want to and do some manipulating that big data and batching it, parallel batching, right? So I'm getting nerdy on you today,
that's great.
Right? So, but when big data is another thing that we talk about in the evolution of technology, and how do I, because it's out there, it's being produced, right? Big data. How do I lasso that thing and use it, right? Because it's everywhere. Internet of Things producing. We talk about the beginning of the class about how much data is actually being produced in the world. It's quadrillion.
Yeah.
And it's these numbers that are too big for our tiny little brains to like fathom. It really is. So, but when you want to take down a bunch of this data and analyze it, and it's not all pretty, right? Some of it's pictures, some of it's not structured data, it's unstructured data mostly. And you kind of learn that. But it's possible. It's being done today. And if you can't figure out how to harness that, you're going to be behind. You won't be able to be competitive. We learned in business class that there's this, when you have a new technology coming out or a new product, right? You got to hop over that gap, that early adopter gap, right? There's these people who jump on and they're early adopters right away, right? But how do you get people to jump that gap of new technology? Like, oh, I want to, and smooth that out a little bit. Same thing with the evolution of technology and all the skills and the products that go along with that. You try to get people to jump those gaps, and to like what businesses are figuring out is that early adopters have more of an advantage than kind of waiting for everyone else to get in there, and they're putting their money on that and that kind of research and that kind of and back to what you were saying before, what I hear you saying is like, well, I'm trying to web host, or I'm trying to host my, I'm creating the models, locally maybe, or, and then I'm doing this all separate, right? You're compartmentalizing those different parts of, I'm modeling, I'm collecting data, I'm modeling. And then I need to get that, once I get the data together and I want to present it somehow, I got to get it out there, right? I got to get it like on a web, I got to get it hosted somewhere, right? I got to be able to show people some stuff, right? And you're saying where it's beginning to be a little overtasking and maybe costly. Is that what you were saying? Is that how
Well, that could be a thing too. I'm trying to find the free route.
And then you got to be how do I web host? How do I create my own little servers at home and Right?
Yeah, I've thought about that. If I was to run it locally on a local machine as like a proof of concept, and I get like less than 100 visitors to the website a day, sure, I could do that.
Right.
And that's feasible. And that's where but I'm still trying to figure that out.
Right.
Like, and it seems like, okay, you can use Flask, but that's more like a garage operation. If you want to be a big boy, you need to go to Django. And Django can produce more. But I'm learning slowly. I'm like, okay, I'm getting the pieces of the puzzle, and you're giving me more, and you're definitely, it's like you understand the framework so far.
Sure.
So I create my model in Python, and then I got to create at least 4 different files, one of which is the HTML code that is going to populate, and then I have to put this on some sort of server.
Right.
And that's going to have to be, I have to put it to a web frame, which I didn't understand that. I'm like, why?
Remember, I talked to you about those 4 different things that developers are kind of starting to look at. But what we're starting to see is like those open sourcing languages and products that are available out there are becoming more popular. It's not, I mean, there's still some mainstay stuff out there. I get it. But if you look at that evolution, AI and the next thing and the next thing, and as it's an exponential evolution of technology, it's exponential, and it's really ramping up right now. And before it was kind of going on. If you talk about AI, how did AI develop? Remember, AI like 10, 15, 20 years ago ran into these brick walls, and some of them were getting hold of the large amounts of data. Like, how do I do that? It's too costly. Spaces for storing is too costly. And so you run into these little brick walls, and it stalls out for a little while. Okay, so now storage is cheap. Okay, now what? Connectivity, right? How do I get out there? The availability of large amounts of data just wasn't there 20 years ago, right? Now we're swimming in it. It's overwhelming us.
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
So the AI is hungry, man. It can now it has something to digest, right? Before it wasn't there. So there's a lot of things in place that weren't in place 10, 15, 20 years ago. And those barriers are not there anymore, right? Computing power too, by the way. Okay, so we're there. We're getting there with computing power now. And for a business person like me, and sort of an investor, I invest too. We're starting to look at, hey, these chip companies that make chips that AIs run on. NVIDIA just went crazy because they're going to be some of the major manufacturers of AI chips. That stock is blown up.
Good. Yeah.
This year. Before I was kind of an earlier adopter of NVIDIA because I kind of liked their products personally, and I liked the way the company was run. But then the atmosphere comes there, and like now I need chips. When you look at politics, and I'm gonna dare to get into politics, but let's talk about. You'll hear it every once in a while in the news. So like, we make a deal with Taiwan about chip manufacturing because U.S. can't manufacture all the chips that we need, especially for defense. Okay, because there's the defense chip that's in the defense product that gets made here cannot be in other people's. And when we're talking about drones, everyone's going to have the smarter drone now, right?
Yeah.
But so if you think that all the way back through the chip supply chain, where are we getting that stuff from? Are we making it all here? And the thing is, we cannot make it all here. We do not have that capability. So we have to go abroad. And that's got to be somewhat classified stuff, right? So defense chips. So if you think about even maybe for cybersecurity, right? Defense chips in the future, where are we going to get that stuff from? We have to start making it ourselves. We have to start investing in that infrastructure too. Does that kind of make sense to you?
Oh,
and you'll
totally.
start to hear about, I think Biden was the other day was saying, look, we'll make this chip deal. We'll make it easier for people to make chips here in the U.S. because you're hitting kind of a wall there. And so I did a little bit of that research in my MBA. And so it's starting to make sense, right? It kind of, because I did my MBA thesis on Raytheon.
Oh, that's a good
Yeah,
one.
good company, right?
Yeah, they have great stock too.
Good defense
and they pay
contractor.
a decent dividend.
Well, they're a multi-conglomerate of different types of company, but they're running into the chip issue. And where do I get them from? We have to have a good relationship with Taiwan. And that's why you start maybe even see some politics. Like, why do we care about Taiwan? Well, they might be the answer to some of how we're going to get our chips and evolve our economy off of that. Not with just defense, but just with being a leader in business or a leader in AI. Or,
I know, if China was to just be like, invade Taiwan just like that,
it would hurt. It would hurt.
It would hurt dramatically. It would so much so it increases the skin in the game with the U.S. and Taiwan issue.
Sure.
In China.
Remember, all of our
recognize them as a country.
All of our men and women that are fighting, and you know about this, Michael. They have technology at their fingertips that they're using today. You know, if it's in the tank, on the ship, in the air, navigation systems, all that stuff. And I'm a former.
Yeah, he's a veteran. He was a master sergeant. Air Force. In the Air Force.
A little bit higher than that.
Oh, it was higher? I'm sorry. Did I fuck it up? I'll push later. Later.
You know what is funny about rank is is if you call somebody by the wrong rank, they will correct you.
Oh, they'll fucking correct you. Yeah, so I'm sorry if it's not master.
So what I just did there was an auto response.
Yes.
Okay, and I apologize for that because we're civilians.
I love it. No. What rank was it? Because I fucked it up. If it's not master sergeant.
I'll tell you what. If you mess it up, they will correct you.
Yes.
On the spot. There won't be any later on, you're like,
did I promote you?
You kind of hurt my feelings. No, they won't pull you aside later on. You'll get corrected on the spot.
Oh yeah.
So they won't. In the civilian world, they pull you aside and they're like, hey, you know what? I'd appreciate it if you call me by the correct rank.
God, the civilian world, and that brings up a really good point that I've had a lot of veterans on the podcast, which is great. And this is another reason why I like the podcast is it's kind of like helped with my transition too. Because you have a bunch of people that you're having conversations with, and you get to see where they're coming from, and you start to learn how to talk to civilians. Because talking to civilians is a different thing. Because they're very insecure. A lot of them lie like a motherfucker.
Well, I would say that it's fair to say it's kind of a different culture.
Totally.
Military has its own culture, and when you grow up in it almost in your entire adult life, and then you spend a lot of your best years of your life, because I'm retired, right? That's kind of all you know. Thanks, Siri.
Yeah,
and she's really helpful. She's helpful.
She's helpful.
She helped me get here. Today.
Invest in Apple stock, APPL. It's on the stock market ticker symbol. But okay, so back to your... You
want me to finish a story I started? Oh, I don't know.
Siri was Apple.
We could go on to different things, sports.
No, your transition out.
Oh, transitioning. Haven't fully transitioned yet. Yeah. It's been 5 years.
Yeah, I feel you.
Since I retired. So haven't fully transitioned yet. So it takes a little while too. Some people jump out of... a lot of people on my way out of the military, there's these big transitioning classes that we go to, and they just want to make sure everyone gets off on the right foot. And the military can't be responsible for just dumping its waste on the civilian world when it's done with it, right? Because that happened for a little while. I don't know if I want to go back and talk about it, but it happened, and they got a bad reputation for it. Right, when you start seeing veterans showing up in homeless shelters in an amount that statistically starts to mean something.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, whoa, what's the problem there? Right? Because statistically, there shouldn't be this many people.
Statistically significant.
So they're not being transitioned very well, and the military and the government is attempting to fix that with some decent transition programs, right? And they're putting more money and effort into it than they ever did, because it speaks. There's a lot of potential there. Mm-hmm. There's a huge potential if you think about it. I'm talking about workforce. You already trained and spent millions on people. If I'm talking about retirees, maybe, right? But in your case, you spend your 4, 5, 6 years and you get out. We talk about one of the big ones is the GI Bill. Mm-hmm. It just makes it possible for you to kind of go back to school, get something done. It's a really smart thing. The government has some money. Okay, and some money maybe that they want to spend on education and support education, because really the money didn't go to you or me; it went to the school. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is going to lead us down to the loan issue, but I don't know if I want to get there quite yet. Mm-hmm. But for you and me, it made it possible for us to go back to school, and that's smart if you think about it. Let's just think if you're the government and you have some money to spend to put some people through school, because it's a double-edged sword. Like, I get to help these people, and then I get this is income for schools. Mm-hmm. This is their product is going to get bought by a government entity with billions, right? What's GI Bill spend a year in tuition? I don't know. It's billions. Yeah. Okay. Some of the statistics on that are like a little less now, maybe, but after the Gulf War, and the GI Bill was new, there was close to 1 million people in school a year. A million. It's not quite that high anymore. It's kind of coming back down because there was a little demographic hump there. Mm-hmm. People coming off of and as downsizing happens a little bit in the military, you see that. So it's like maybe 750,000 people in school, and their tuition's being paid for by the U.S. government. Can you imagine what that bill is? It's billions. Yeah. So it's big business, right? When they do that, they're expecting, and you have to be successful. The end of that game is, and the end of that, it's not a game. I apologize. It kind of is, but the end of that story is, hey man, you're not in a homeless shelter. You're not trying to scrape by, but you're actually being a productive member and pumping out some GDP that means something, right?
Or you're homeless with a degree.
Or it depends on your degree, and depends on, like, well, there's this other part. Like, I can be the most educated person in my brain and all kinds of stuff spilling out. But if I don't have some other faculties about me, I can't connect those dots. I can't connect it to a job.
That's true.
And that's probably the next phase we're in, right? Mm-hmm. But there's help there. I'm not sure how great it is. There are companies who are all over too. They love military vets, and not just because they get a break or they get a tax break or whatever, because they're proven people they're proven employees. They're like, they're a veteran. That employee's being very successful. Mm-hmm. I'm getting a lot of bang for my buck when I hire that person, because there's much more to them. They show up on time. They pay their bills. They're respectful to authority, maybe, but kind of, versus maybe a civilian, right? So there's a lot of those pre-built-in things they get, that make the difference. They move up too. If we were in this group when we were going to school together at Gonzaga, right? Student Veterans of America. Mm-hmm. And we learned about all the other veterans and how they're doing in all the other schools, right? When we're a part of that association. And what I learned was, we're pretty sought after, and we have a pretty good reputation, and our statistics, here we go again, right? Yeah. We're more likely to graduate than the civilian counterparts in school. We're more likely to get higher grades. We're more likely to, just show up every day and pay attention than your normal civilian student. And I'm largely talking about undergrad, but grad school, everyone's showing up and paying attention because they're paying for it. They're paying for it. And we're adult learners. Adult learners. Do you know the word for adult learners? I learned this in
what's that?
In school. It's called andragogy.
Whoa, that's a big one.
Andragogy. This is how you're going to learn this. Yeah, maybe you should ask some of your professors, what does andragogy mean? Explain it to me. But and when you go to MBA school, it's about how adults learn. Adults learn different than
a
non-adults. Non-adults. Is that a good word? Like, I don't want to say kids because they're not really kids anymore. They're young adults.
The sub 25.
Yeah.
Like I thought about that if I didn't go to the military, if I was to go straight to college after high school, I would have never made it. I would have been way too overstimulated.
Yeah.
There's too many girls. There's too many things that'll distract you.
Sure. We all have our own journey.
Yeah. And like if I was young back then, I would have, and that's the thing, I didn't even want to go to school.
Right.
I want to go to the military. I was done with school.
Sure.
So when I went back, I had an appreciation for it. I knew like what I was going for.
That's perfectly fine. And if I tell you my story, you're going to see some similarities there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because we were in the same program, the MIS.
Yeah.
So after 2020, where did you go? What was your life like?
2020, that's graduating for me. Let me back up a little bit. In 2015, I retired from the United States military at 26 years of service, and I went back to school and pursued a degree in business.
Which is really rare because
in undergrad.
Find somebody who did 26 years who had the balls to go back.
There are people.
They're there, but they're few and far between.
Yeah, that's not your chosen path, but here we are, right? For a lot of people that have that much service usually come out of the service with some sort of other degree. There are pathways where you can finish your degree while serving. It just takes a while.
Yeah.
And you have limited possibilities. So you have limited choices, I would say, of like what you would want to do. And remember, I'm dating myself. Not a whole lot of online learning at reputable institutions when I was ready to go back, or I was ready to learn as an adult, right? In the military.
Yeah.
Now, what's your excuse, right? What's your excuse? Not a whole lot of good excuses nowadays, right? That's great, by the way. You just have to kind of vet your program and what you want to do. You got to do your homework on yourself and where you're going to spend your money and your time. Right? I would totally agree with that, right?
Yeah.
Because you can go down the wrong path and get there and you're like, wow, I wish I would have done something different. So no regrets. Do your homework if you're looking at a second career in something, or you're going back to school and you want to pursue something. I would say as an adult, you got to do your due diligence. You got to interview your school like, hey, dude, I'm the customer. What do you offer me? You know what I mean? Like, not like,
especially
will you accept
as an
me?
Adult,
right?
Because,
sure, as an adult, you're like, I don't know.
You're not competing with all the high school,ers.
Gonzaga was scary because it's got a lot of, as an undergrad, because it's got a lot of pipeline, high-performing high schoolers that are, it's very competitive to get in there.
Yeah.
But when you're,
they were high performing.
so it's to apply to that as an adult, to apply to a school like that, you're like, I don't know if I can make it, man. I don't know. And so you just kind of rely on you do it. Well, that's kind of idea. You kind of got to let go. Well, does that school offer the education that I'm looking for? Yes. Let's do some more research on it. So, man, it's just like, it's up to you. It's like going to school. It's like getting a new job too. It's like, maybe you should research the company you're applying for. Well, not maybe. It's compulsory almost now. You go into an interview, you don't know a little bit about that company or how it operates. You should. Because maybe when it's time for you to ask some of the questions, you're like, well, what do you think the future of this company is? And is it going to be in this area or are you going to, I'll just give you an example. Collins Aerospace is a part of Raytheon and has I believe it's a brake division right here in Spokane, over in Airway Heights, I think area, right? So if I want to get back into aerospace and work with programs, I got to be like, well, what's the future of that brake program here in Spokane? Mm-hmm. Or do I want to work for a big corporate outfit that comes with its own thing, right? Like, do I want to go back to work for a big corporation, mm-hmm. right? Because then you're like fighting the rung to get up the ladder. They're just going to expect a lot out of you. Not so much freedom, there's a lot of control. Mm-hmm. Those processes have to be controlled like crazy.
Here, right? Let me stop you for a little bit.
Sure.
Now I'm turning off the camera because it's a podcast, and that's the purpose, is for listening to a podcast, not watching people. So just keep this video running while you go do things in the background, and just keep listening. All right, cool. So I turned that off. Yeah. So there. Yeah. Now we just keep talking on audio. Yeah. So either way, yeah. So Raytheon. Well, I guess the concept of a company. Man, I hope that.
Now you're going to get in my territory. You start talking about companies and business.
That's fine. So tell me about where you see yourself with this whole with the data analytics.
It's going to be a part of everyone's business career to some degree.
Oh yeah.
So, I have an affinity for it, because I'm kind of analytical by nature. And when I say that, my military career started out in aircraft maintenance. So I'm troubleshooting problems. I'm troubleshooting problems, and I'm using analytics to do that. I'm like, I'm analyzing something and I'm troubleshooting, and I really get a great satisfaction out of fixing things that are broken. Mm-hmm. Is that fair to say? I mean, it kind of makes sense. And so that's my jam, and I think you got to know yourself a little bit to kind of know what's going to make you happy. And the further along I get in my business education, you're like, well, I don't want to be a top financier. That's okay, moving money around, and then management too. That's people. Get a lot of satisfaction out of. But I would love to do all those things. I can't see, the more you look at it, you can't see past having to deal with data and analytics and competitive advantage. They go together. They're hand in hand. And you're going to probably see in any company that you work for, you're going to see them either have an issue with it or be more committed to it. We talked about this earlier, right? Or just kind of having to adopt it in some form or fashion to stay competitive. I want to talk hypothetically about someone I know.
Okay.
Anonymously, not hypothetically.
Okay, so an anonymous.
But just suppose I'm in a. I'm just gonna. I want to genericize it. Okay. Let's just suppose I'm in a company who's just using Excel spreadsheets just to kind of make the day go by. But they have maybe a group of analysts, but they're all maybe a little older, maybe not so high tech, but they're getting by. Right? Maybe they spend an inordinate amount of time putting together reports and copying and pasting out of Excel documents and compiling and running reports off of legacy systems because they don't talk. You getting me where I'm getting? Yeah. This is prevalent. Okay, it's not just some loser companies here and there that are gonna die eventually. It's a lot of people are having similar problems, right? And they're like, but then your budget comes down. You go like, well, I have to do more with less. How do you do that? We had to do this in the military too. One of the things our generals kept whispering in our ear, and our general officers kept saying, utilize technology. Utilize technology. Like that, I've seen it happen. It can, even like they're kind of doing that, but then on the other hand, they're not sending us to school to figure out what that is and what direction I want to go to and what skill sets are my workers going to need to be able to leverage technology to do more with less. Maybe I could put all those reports together, download them, convert everything. I don't need 3 analysts to do that, or 3 cubicle workers to do that and just continually shuffle report. What's the future? Are they going to be able to still cut and paste? And when you do that, you can get mistakes. You have to check it. There's a lot of things going on in those processes, right? Those business processes that take a lot of time. And on the other way, and on the other side of this, you got me going, because this is kind of where my passion. I'm blending the two, right? I'm blending the two things together, business and analytics, right? And what happens to those processes? What happens to the people that are doing those processes? When you come into work all day and you're cutting and pasting out of Excel documents and you're performing reports, and like, is that satisfying work? No. Do you enjoy doing that? And then staring at a screen all day? That is not what humans should be doing. Right? Yeah. That is not human work. And we shouldn't expect humans to do that. And it's up to people that know better to prepare people for the future. That means they need a different skill set. We need to put them to school. One of the things, like a lot of things, Excel has built-in products that do cleaning of data, that do restructuring of data, that remember how you process that data before and can perform the same
sort of pipeline
things. And you start to see it. Like, those are tools. They're out there. Your business even probably pays for them. But no one's learning how to utilize that technology. That's kind of along what I'm saying. But we were talking earlier about developers, right? Yeah. Developers, and how do you utilize the technology you have? Well, I don't know. It's out there. Like, open source stuff is out there. And I guarantee you, some of these developers, right, at work, they're using Microsoft SQL. At home, they're playing with MongoDB. Right? Right? Yeah. And then there's like, at some point, they're going to go, what the heck? This thing is way easier, way faster. Wait, why aren't we doing this? And it's going to happen. It's already happening. So that's the developer side. But what about, so companies need to kind of reskill their workforce. You hear it all the time, but are people really doing it? Send people to like school to learn, be maybe a subject matter expert on the magical things you can do with Excel that you already have, that your business already pays for. And that some of those functions, they're like little buttons that popped up. They're like, when did that button pop up? Mm-hmm. What does that function do? Sometimes, what I really liked, and there's people at Microsoft working at this stuff in the background going, I know the future. Microsoft is one of those companies too, like IBM, Microsoft. They're forward-looking companies, super forward-looking. And it's great to see some of the products come out of there. I talked to my dad about this the other day on the phone. And I said, you can have the best technology in the world, okay? Microsoft can build the best products in the world. If no one knows how to use them, they're useless. That's so the problem. Mm-hmm. It's the problem right now. Yep. But it's like, I'm looking at that Excel, and I've shown people this that I know. I'm like, you see that thing right there? The last 3 hours you were cutting and pasting in Excel, that thing, and you prepare this report monthly, that button, you can program it to go get that file, go get those 6 files in 6 different places, and assemble this report in the exact format that you want by a push of a button after you program it. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay? That's transforming, and that's built into Excel right now. If your company's paying for it, you got that capability. You don't need to cut and paste and build reports anymore. You can do that on your own with a little bit of training. That's low-hanging fruit. That's the easy fix, right? Mm-hmm. The hard fix is like, if I run reports out of these legacy systems and I dump them into Excel files, is there a way that I can automate that process too? Like maybe convert those files and have them talk, and then maybe I just realign that. I don't even have to assemble those products anymore. So I don't need to be the cutter and the paster, right? That's what humans should be doing right now. That analyst shouldn't be cutting and pasting and doing the same stuff over and over per set of rules, right? That they have, set procedure that they have.
Yeah, I wouldn't last long in a job like that.
There's a lot of that going on out there.
That's really boring.
Sure.
If I'm not like Sherlock Holmes, and that's one of the fun things I love about the data. And it wasn't until you mine through something and realizing that most of the data is unexplored. Like 99% of it is totally unexplored. Not even close to 1% is explored. And people are just taking the data. Some people are good at just scraping and pulling and compiling. Mm-hmm. And they just drop the data sets on places like Kaggle or data.gov. And there's just so much data on random crap that it's just find a topic you want to learn about. And I learned so much about an industry every time I mine through its data or I try to solve a problem. Like, for example, when the housing market crashes again, it's going to be particularly bad because every major platform that's doing home appraising is pulling from Zillow. And Zillow's estimates are snake oil. And what's going to happen is people are going to need to go back to, how do I just appraise a home from square footage and a zip code and some other features? Because everybody, like Redfin, Homes.com, they're all pulling from Zillow for their zest for the appraising number, and they're just adding their little flair to it to make it higher.
You know what we say in the data analytics world, and I said we this time, so I'm starting to adopt it. Garbage in, garbage out.
Garbage in, garbage out. Yeah.
So and that's
it's
important.
A house of cards of garbage is what they're building the housing market appraisal on.
Well, if I'm pulling that data, okay, so I hire a skilled data analytics person, okay, and I find out, and I go into my new company, right, and I'm working there, and I find out they're pulling those from Zillow. Time out, right? So you need people with those skill sets to tell you that's not correct. It will be garbage in, garbage out for you. Mm-hmm. And if you're having a problem if it's good enough, it's good enough, right? If it's good enough for an estimate and the job's getting done, that's okay. But the second you use it for something that's not, you need someone who's skilled enough to tell you that that's wrong. All right. And then maybe get you a pathway to what could be correct for that, right? You might have to learn a couple of bad lessons to figure that out if you're running a company or you're in the C-suite, right? You're like, oh, we're using, I bet you that's happening now anyway. They're like, where did we get that information? How do we fail on that estimate, you know? And you look back into it, you do that a couple times and you're like, oh, data's bad. This is not the assumption. It's always in the assumptions, right? It's always in the assumptions, really. Well, and it's off of model. The thing you were just talking about is built off of a model somewhere, and if the assumptions aren't correct, then the prediction's not going to be correct.
No.
Right?
And what I'm finding interesting is because Zillow publishes how they make their snake oil, there's estimate.
Sure.
And in fact, none of these other places, these Redfin, X Homes, insert name of home place, homes.com, they are not factoring in population increase at all.
What do you mean? Are you talking about demand?
Yeah, straight up demand. Thank you.
So the business guy's going, population increase means demand.
Okay. That's what I keep telling these real estate agents. I'm like, look, dude, real estate, like any market's based off of supply and demand of people willing to sacrifice to live in an area.
The smart realtors in this area, they're doing that. They're getting good. Okay, so you want to talk about population? How do I know what the population of Spokane is today? How do I know?
That's a good question.
How would you find out?
I would just...
You're going to go back to the census, the 2010? Right? You're probably going to have to build a model for that, right? And make some estimates and assumptions to get a good, accurate. But do I need an accurate?
Yeah, how accurate
population?
is accurate?
How
Where's the
accurate does it have to be?
regulations on how accurate my model needs to be?
Yeah, and another problem. I mean, we could dig into all those problems. So, and if everyone's using the same numbers, like, well, yeah, can you guess, like, Spokane's population? You want to guess?
I looked it up. It was around.
And are we going to include the valley too?
It's not that many.
Yeah,
it's like 200,000 ish.
I mean, just in the city.
Oh, I'm
because
not
this
sure.
greater area out in the valley, I think we're pushing higher than that. Kind of some of the last estimates I've seen a few years ago was right around 400.
That's probably right.
Like, and it's hard not to include the valley in some areas. So you got to define what those are. And then, yeah, you go out and grab some, I bet you know who's going to be more accurate than that, who does, and that stuff depends a lot on, is voting, not just registration, but campaigning. Those campaigners, they look at that data pretty hard. And they're like, we don't have to spend time over here in this county, but this county, we have to do our. And so when it comes around election time, and we're coming up on an election year, not going to talk about election politics, but those people in the background are looking at numbers, man. They are looking at numbers, and the people who run those campaigns, they're data crazy people, right?
You hope so.
Oh, they are. It's been proven. That's been going on for a long time.
The bigger campaigns, not the local county level.
Yeah, the bigger campaign. I'm talking about presidential
like
campaigns.
And above,
sure.
If you're running for senator, you should have an analytics team.
Oh, they do. They do. Yeah. And they know they have historical analytics too, from like, oh, this is how this county's drawn. And then we can go into that too. And then like, this is the problem with when you hear about people want to redraw lines.
Well, it's funny you bring all that up because the last blog I did was a data mining analysis from data.gov. First off, and I still have to write the script for the YouTube video I've got to make on it. So if you donate at all, that's public information. Well, I didn't know this until I pulled the data from data.gov and I'm looking at individual names and their addresses and where they live. So I could send them hate mail if I wanted to.
Okay.
Like, you've sent money to this. Like, you know so that's the thing. If you donate money to a political campaign, that is public information.
It should be.
It should be, yes.
Okay.
And so I mined through the data. I ran it through 4 different models. Not a single model could be accurate for predicting how much like is going to be per year. It was totally random. So I think a lot of people don't, according to the data, like over 6 million instances from Washington State. But what I found is the teachers union is the largest contributor. And then the second largest contributor is the real estate political action committee, the realtors political action committee. Yeah, that's just some random shit. But so yeah, that's what I love about data is mining through it and finding things. Like when I mined through, what got me in the world of YouTube is my capstone was I found this YouTube set that this guy from India, or some rich dude from India, is pulling all this data and he's dumping it on Kaggle because these API calls are expensive. Like you get 50 free a day, but he's pulling like 500,000 every 4 days. So he's dumping some money into these API calls on YouTube, and he's dumping the repository on Kaggle. And so I mined through it, and I learned that 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is the only time to upload your videos.
Right.
And I'm like, holy shit. And that was a bell-shaped curve. And then I learned that the categories, how to, science, and tech, and education, were the categories that you should upload as for the most engagement.
I'm going to blow your mind.
All right,
ready?
Please do.
Ready for this?
Please.
Okay. And this is right on topic. This is what you're talking about.
Good.
In 2018, so pre-COVID, right? 33 zettabytes, Statista, 33 zettabytes of data created, consumed, or stored in the world. What's a zettabyte?
That's really big.
Okay. Equivalent of 33 trillion gigabytes. That's in 2018.
33 trillion gigabytes. So I know the highest in my mind is like a petabyte. So I don't know what a zettabyte is. That's probably got to be way bigger.
And it's not just data. That's what humans, we can only deal with like certain size numbers. Once they start to get to be a certain size, we lose track. And that's humans. That's not just, that's everybody. I mean, like 33 trillion gigabytes. And now it's kind of average for everyone to know. I know what a gigabyte is. Heck yeah, I got that. Today it's estimated 64. So it just doubled.
Okay.
See that exponential curve in data created, Internet of Things, everyone's storing everything everywhere. It's being created and created. So we don't have a lack of data. We're swimming in it. All kinds of it. Some of it structured in tables sitting there ready for us to consume on Kaggle. Yeah. Like you're just saying. Some of it's just sitting in pools and it's just images. Mm-hmm. But when I'm training AI and doing stuff like that, doing machine language, I need a body of work to pull from. Yeah. That's there now. You just have to qualify it. I saw, what was it? It was a special online about this young lady that was working at MIT, this young girl, and she was in the lab, super smart girl, and she was doing something with facial recognition, okay? And it wouldn't, the facial recognition program that she was working with, some other company created, right? But she was kind of combining it with some of her research. She's using it to like qualify it to like, does it do a good job, or is it like accurately working for me to be able to use? And what she found out was like, she basically, it wouldn't recognize her face. And I'm like, there's a problem with that data. There's a problem with, there's some machine learning going on in the background, training this algorithm to recognize based on what? right? Based on how it got trained, right? So what she kind of did all the research, went back to the company and figured out that, and they were, I think it was a company, like, it was a big company. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was Microsoft or not, but it was a big company. And they were, that's what I like about Microsoft. She got denied all these other companies that had similar products. Mm-hmm. But Microsoft said, hey, come on in, we'll talk about this. What's your problem? Why won't it recognize your face? It's not just her face. It's a racial thing. She's from a certain race, and it just wouldn't recognize her face. So she puts on a mask to look like a different race, and it recognizes her right away. This is maybe 5 years ago or so, right? Cool. But Microsoft brings her in, and they go, well, what's your issue? And then they looked at it and we're interested that you publish this. And she published, right? Mm-hmm. She's working at MIT. She's brilliant young lady, got a big career ahead of her. She's got the MIT lab at her, at helping her out. Pretty cool. But she's one of those people saying this technology is evolving too fast. Mm-hmm. Because it has problems. You shouldn't have the general public or put something out there and have them tell you it's wrong. And there's bias in it, and it needs to come out. Right, we're hitting on another huge topic in data analytics and bias, and technology evolving too. So she, Microsoft invites her in, which is great, and she's telling the story. Right, well, I'm like, that's cool that at least they understand, and this should say something. This should mean something to you that they're interested in. What's the bias? I want to fix it. Yeah. Right. And so she pointed out, and it all comes back to how I led into this little short story is that, what was the training material that machine language used to, what was the base? And you look back
into shit. You're the only, of all the people who come on this podcast claiming to be, this and that, you're the only one who brings up what is the data behind it that creates it.
And Microsoft said, you know what? You're right. You're right. We looked back into the data, but you shouldn't have this end of the product telling you that the very beginning of the product training material. And because you get in the middle and you're like, well, we're trained data scientists and we're a group of people and made up of psychologists and data analysts and data engineers. And we've got this all figured out, right? And they're PhDs, right? Mm-hmm. But garbage in, garbage out, right? Garbage in, garbage out. And so when you look at who did the testing on this, how come this facial recognition doesn't recognize people from certain races? It's ridiculous. And if it depends on how you're going to use it. How are you going to use it? Because you're going to deny somebody off of facial recognition because you did a bad job in developing the product.
Or you arrest somebody in China because China's got See, this is why I don't believe China's facial recognition could be anywhere near what they say it is. I believe it's mostly propaganda to try to keep people controlled. But think about how fucked up our databases and how siloed they are here. China's got to be way worse.
Yeah, but China's largely very few races of people.
Which would make it way exponentially worse for false positive rates. That's what I worry about. It's just because they say they got a model out there and it's doing facial recognition doesn't mean it's accurate. Yeah. And think about how easy it is to trick a machine.
Yeah. Well,
you can trick a human. I've seen people, I'm like, God, that person looks so familiar. So familiar. Or you're like, you swear to God that is that person. And you talk to him and then you're like, no, I feel like an idiot. Because how is that? It's not better than a human is my argument. I got to use the bathroom.
Sure.
Say what you
I want to, I'll wait really quickly.
You're right. There is a disconnect between the people who know stuff
Well,
and the
it's
people who think they know stuff.
okay. Well, that's what you hear about in the news. We need some consortiums or some regulations or rules about using technology. Sometimes it's being unchecked. Sometimes I know for a fact that part of the same program that I'm talking about, where the young lady from MIT is going back to Microsoft, telling them your facial recognition's bias. And it's not working in this case. And she's, got legit concerns. And they went back and they went back to their machine learning algorithm. How did you learn? What was your, what was your learning data that you fed this when you did it? And he looked at it. Well, that too, but
it was images.
If the whole idea is it's going to, and they found out it's just their data set had largely one race that the algorithm learned from. And that's not good enough. There needs to be some standards. You're hearing this in the news all the time too about using technology. Needs to be some standards. You were talking about New York and public schools.
Yeah.
Because you're starting to get into freedoms, right?
Yeah, totally. It's some real serious shit people
What if I want to wear a mask to the school?
Right.
What if I have a ski mask on and I want to wear it to school? You're telling me I can't? Because I need to show my face to get into school?
Yeah.
Is that what that's all about?
Well, they banned it. They banned facial recognition in schools.
Because,
in New York.
I got to show my face? Now you're making me do,
I think they just preemptively banned it.
Who kind of went off the rails with this technology is the UK. Because they're so afraid of terrorism, and there's like a hodgepodge of different people all over the place, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, so they have they have trucks. Have you seen them?
No.
They have these trucks with all this gear on it. It's got sensors and cameras, and they'll park them outside of the train station. And it'll just sit there and just scan people's faces and put you through the database. And then if you hit for someone who's got a warrant or is a Interpol or whatever, right? And they'll just warn the cops, and the cops will come over and grab you. And how many false positives do you think they've had over there doing that? And sort of it's becoming an harassing thing that they're doing to the public. And people are like, yeah, I got pulled over a couple of times. Now people aren't even showing their faces as they're coming out of train stations and very public areas in the UK.
It's a good way to get people to wear their masks.
And you could see people wearing masks in the UK because they just don't want their face scanned. Maybe you just really do look like someone. You keep tripping that algorithm and system. Think about that for a second. Mm-hmm. Is that the kind of world you want to live in?
No.
Would you like to be harassed and you continually being? So there's an issue there, right? The issue is who's okay in this technology, right? Who's okay in that facial recognition saying it's good enough? Let's err on the caution of your freedoms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I've said, how do it's easy to trick a machine. You can put a QR code on something, on a stop sign. If it's a self-driving car, you put a certain QR code and it'll mess up the Tesla. Yeah. You can do that. It brings up like the racist soap dispenser that somebody made.
Sure.
Yeah, that only dispensed to white people.
Hey, they're not going to be perfect, right? Mm-hmm. I would just say that you need some sort of consensus on the public and the freedoms they're willing to give up, because we give up freedoms every day, mm-hmm. right? We do this. We've made the conscious choice or voted for it or whatever. No one's completely free, right? No one's completely free. So we give up some freedoms to like, I don't know. We can't leave... And there's some people running around the world going, I am completely free, and if I'm not, you really don't probably want to live in a completely free society either. So we give up some freedoms, right? I think I can get us to a basic understanding of that. Because we do. We let cops pull us over if they think we're speeding, and then we'll speed, or something, right? And so we give up the freedom of, I can't go to where I want to go. I see some lights, I'll pull over, because I want to live in that same society where I don't want a bunch of other people speeding too, or especially in front of a school where I have kids going to school. So you give up some of those things, right? When you allow the police to do what they need to do, you're not completely free at that point. You're going to say, okay, I'm dealing with it. I think that's kind of where I want to go with this. So no one's completely free. We're giving up some freedoms. We pay taxes, right? Mm-hmm. I drive a licensed car. I have to have a license to drive. You have to have a
license for almost everything.
Right. So I'm giving up some of those freedoms but they've got to be worth it to me, right? Mm-hmm. I got to be okay with it, and I think that there's a lot of that going on, where people don't quite realize how much.
Yeah, you got to talk into the mic more because you're kind of like.
They don't quite realize that some of the things that they're getting for the freedoms that they give up, and they get kind of focused on what they don't have, right? I'm not saying that's everybody's argument. There are some freedoms getting trampled on for sure. But I'm kind of the glass half full.
Yeah.
kind of guy. I guess that's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
But I think that comes with, you gotta kind of be educated about that too. You gotta care enough about it to educate. And I'm not saying that people who are demonstrating are like wrong. I'm not saying that. I think we should all have the right to demonstrate. It does get results.
I think the creepiest demonstration is one I don't want to see, of disregarding the law, which is a sign of drug addiction more than anything. When you pull up to a stop sign anywhere, to a stoplight, and you look to the left and the right, how many of the drivers are on their cell phone? Yeah. Even the cops are doing it. They're the worst. They don't care. They're just
they have their computer.
Yeah, typing away.
I see it.
Like,
yeah,
distracted. People are addicted to this technology. We
were afraid that this was going to happen.
It was the law. We've overwhelmingly agreed. Yeah, we'll vote it as a law. You shouldn't text and drive. We should be hands-free. And still, nobody cares.
I'll be honest with you. It does happen. But if it was prevalent, like some other form of vehicular manslaughter,
it's more dangerous than drinking and driving.
I wonder what, let's go back to stats. We're data nerds, right?
Yeah.
Let's go back to stats. I wonder what the insurance companies think about that and what their statistics are.
There
is probably some overwhelming stuff going on about how many more accidents. I bet you there's more, but they're like maybe less. We've always had radios and stuff in the car. People messing with those too, right? Mm-hmm. But that's acceptable. We've looked right past that. Like, how many times did somebody die from changing a channel on the radio? I don't know. Back in the day, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know. We definitely traded that for the phone because we're all addicted to our phones, and that's another subject for another day.
Yeah, just keep talking. We gotta turn on it. There we go. Yeah, turn it up.
Yeah, let me ask you: Are you guilty too by distracted driving?
Yeah,
the answer is anyone that says no is a liar.
Yeah, no, we're all. I thought about this. How much of your thinking are you willing to give up to a machine? And I've thought about this, like, how do you get anywhere now without Google Maps? If you were to go to a big city, just fly into LA, go somewhere. How would you get around? You are reliant on Google Maps. You can't even it's hard to find a road atlas map.
Right. Okay.
And then you have to orient yourself and read a map,
right?
Which is a skill.
So that's old school. Okay, old school is me. Mm-hmm. Okay, so before I came in the military, I was I worked for a distributor, right? And we had a lot of accounts on the East Coast and northern parts, so Michigan all the way to Virginia probably. And so I did a lot of driving. Okay? No Siri, no embedded system that wasn't happening. Okay? It was buy a map, make a plan, follow map.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? How much of the map did I look down at and not get directions guided by my cell phone now? I plugged your address. I just tapped on your address when you texted it to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I put my phone in the holder, and it just tells me what to do. All right? It even, my Apple phone, my Apple Watch, even...
That's a nice one.
The Ultra,
That's
right?
Cool.
It's a cool watch. Like,
I like
but
it.
what it actually kind of like it vibrated a couple times before the turn.
Oh, cool. Kick
So
ass.
I'm just telling me like this is like, bzz, bzz, bzz. So this is the turn you want to make. Sometimes you're like, is it this turn or is it this turn, right? The one before so it just kind of beeps you and you get used to it. It's haptic feedback, right? And you get used to that, and all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't even have to like look down at a map. I'm listening to cues and I'm feeling haptics to how to react. So let's go back old school. Let me go to get a map, figure out where you are, map out a plan, refer to my map on the drive over. Now, that part got safer, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
That part of technology got safer, but still there's other distracted things going on, right? So Is it helping? Yeah, it's helping. Is it hurting? Yeah, it's hurting. I kind of want to go back to like, we're hearing in the news about consortiums and about technology and how we're going to adopt it and facial recognition and is it acceptable yet? We need that. We need a consortium of people to telling us that, technology is not quite there yet before. I did a paper in undergrad about hiring programs that where you're leaving a video, you're uploading a video to them, or you're having a video chat with someone and you're being analyzed. Your video is being analyzed. How much do you look up? How much do you look over? And then there's a company that sold some snake oil to firms to kind of like ease their hiring burdens, right? Because it's the hiring process takes work, takes money, and so like if I can get that interview funnel down to a certain point where I'm getting the best person that's available out there, I would be willing to invest in some technology that would help me to do that. And the early adopters of that HR technology probably have a lot of, how do you want to say, ground to gain or payoff. And the earlier you do it, the better off you'll be. And there's pressure, right, to do more with less. So how do I don't want to sit in interviews with 100 people. Let me have your technology. They can just talk 5 minutes and answer a couple of questions, and I'll have it judge them.
Yeah.
That was happening about 5 years ago before they got figured out. And it's similar to the facial recognition issue. There was a lot of bias going in there, and who developed that technology. HireVue. I don't know if you've heard of them. I'm going to call out their name because they were scrutinized and they were early adopters of interview technology, video, that's going to make a judgment on you, on how you react to questions. And then give that report to HR professionals and let them decide if they're going to hire you or not. How would you feel about that?
I didn't like that bullshit, dude. I've done
You've
all
done
that
it.
crap.
You've done it, right?
Yeah, and it got me nothing, got me nowhere.
What was your feedback?
Oh, my feedback was, of course, an email saying, unfortunately, we've decided to move on with other candidates who have experiences in education more closely aligned with the job description.
Some bigger companies were using HireVue interviewing technology, okay? I'm not going to name their names, but then they figured out pretty quickly that there was some bias in it, and it was saying whether you're going to be, it was making judgments on characteristics about you that AI really isn't qualified to do right now. It was saying that, well, this person will be trustworthy because how they answered the questions, okay? Yeah. And then what their faces were doing, whether they were blinking.
Dude, that is
so someone made
snake oil.
Okay, now it is snake oil,
and pseudoscience.
I was so psyched when I was writing the paper. I was like, "Wow, this is a real deal. Mm-hmm. This is kind of like a." So what happened was, okay, and if you go to their website, they don't do this anymore because there was so much controversy over this. They had to back down, but they were caught selling a little bit of snake oil here. They thought they were doing the right thing, though, okay? So they hired a psychologist, and they hired a data analyst, and this might sound familiar. I was talking about this earlier. And so they thought, well, I have the super qualified people in each of their fields. I have a data analyst, you know what I mean? And I have like a psychologist, and then they formed a proprietary product that they weren't telling people how it was trained, what was in it, whatever, because this technology was in demand, was solving problems, okay, and they didn't want other companies duplicating that. So they were like, we're going to form this group, we're going to develop this product to like judge people's characteristics off of interviews.
I feel like I've totally been exposed to this more than
well,
one time.
They still use this stuff. No, it's not like they're not using it, but the output of the product is now acceptable for what that technology should be able to do. Okay? It's not telling you whether you be trustworthy or show up on to work on time or can't trust this person, or it was giving them characteristics like that. I'll share I have it like on file. I'll send it to you.
Okay. Yeah.
But they're not doing it anymore because they got called out on it enough, and people like you were complaining about it. Well, what interesting fact that I found out through the research was people were learning how to cheat it.
As they should.
So
that's only fair.
So they were getting in today's connected social world, people were sharing like, yeah, I didn't get hired from that place, and I didn't get hired from this place. But when it did work, you're like, well, I got hired from this place, and this is what I did. And you share that information, you learn how to trick the algorithm into thinking you're trustworthy because you don't look up or don't look down or whatever you do, right? You learn the pattern and you agree. So how good is that really? We're not ready for that type of technology. And most academics, people and that study like that are in the field, MIT, all that stuff, they're kind of got them together, a quasi-consortium, like, right? We're getting the biggest minds together. They say AI cannot judge a person's characteristics. They can judge whether they're trustworthy or they're by the way that they act. We're not there yet. It can't do that level of are we going to get there someday? Maybe. But there needs to be an authority. Or else it gets this unchecked technology can go bad really quickly. You have a comment on that? Because I have another subject I'm going to jump right into.
Jump right into it.
Just read another article this morning about the dangers of AI. Right? Okay. And this is not like I'm not digging for these articles. Mm-hmm. They're like front page stuff, right? They're front page stuff. And AI advisor to UK's government and their artificial intelligence committee or group that they've formed is warning them that within 2 years, AI will pose a significant threat to humans. And a couple of the examples that they gave was unchecked AI will develop some bioweapons for whomever needs to use them. It's not going to kill all of society, but they're thinking it could be used to develop a bioweapon that could be wipe out, like a certain amount of the population, or be very effective at it. Or it could be used to, develop bioweapons really easily. Or it could be used to, what was the other thing? But basically, within 2 years, unchecked. And I think you're seeing a lot of people like, what's his name? Tesla.
Elon Musk.
Elon saying, time out. We need to take a time out and figure this out. Because he's probably privy to some of the research that we're not privy to about AI because of who he is. And they're getting to some really weird places with it, and it's scary. I mean, fear's one thing, but I wouldn't be that fearful over it. But I think, hey, that's a legit thing. Maybe we need to have some sort of time out and powwow about this and try to figure it out as a society instead of trying to run with it and fix problems later on.
That's a good point. Yeah, the world of AI and ethics, that's something that people boil down to. I've got some ethical concerns. My biggest ethical question is, how much of your thinking are you willing to give up to a machine? At what point do you become an actual sentient agent of, say, ChatGPT or the one that you like the most? That new AGI that you like the most. So there's that concept of how much are you willing to give up, because we've given up our ability to drive and navigate. We have given up
navigate.
I mean, I fear the day that you can't just walk up and talk to somebody on the street. You would have to send them some sort of request through some information system prior. That's not a good thing. I also think about the limitations of machine learning, and some are legit models and some are just complete snake oil. And I've also noticed too, as I've talked to people in the world of cybersecurity or this space and listening to podcasts, there's a lot of charlatans and people, like the rise of charlatanism in artificial intelligence. So charlatanism as in, this is bad, I communicate with it, you should fear this and listen to me and my shit, like kind of a charlatanism. So the more you explore that, the more you'll see.
Are you saying like against AI totally?
No, not necessarily. More like Elon Musk is doing it. He's being a charlatan by saying you should fear this, we are going too quick. I told them they're going too fast. I told them they should stop. Yeah. I think, one, he's joking, but two, there's plenty of others like that sit and complain about AI and the direction it's going for it. But they don't, I don't feel that, one, they're the experts in talking about it, and two, I don't know. My biggest concern with let's go back to England. England had this Horizon scandal. Horizon was this accounting software. It's not necessarily AI. It's just putting too much trust in the algorithm is what it is. It was the largest injustice in UK history of wrongful convictions. So they convicted over like 200-something people for embezzling money when it was just their accounting software was fucked up. And it was from the 90s. And finally somebody called it out. Like, no, I want to see the source code. And that popped the lid off the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you got that. You got the thing I don't like with the world of AI and image generation is they train these machine learning models on nefarious shit.
Yeah.
Like the worst nefarious shit.
So what you're saying, if I hear you right, with technology, we need like an ingredients label. Right?
There should be a minimum threshold of accuracy on a model that you put out. Because I could put out a model that's no better than a coin flip and sell it label as like something good.
Yeah, it's just one of those. It's one of those Wild West things that we're getting there. Okay, mm-hmm. We kind of know that we need to. It needs to be okayed. It needs to be, I don't know, maybe licensed. I don't know what those answers are exactly. Maybe, right? If somebody sells us bad food in the supermarket, it's going to be found out, and there's a system in place to kind of like recall and report
in a chain of custody
and kind of fix a problem, right? Yeah. It's kind of the Wild West when it comes to AI. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have to figure that out.
But it totally is.
I wouldn't say it, but I think the whole point of this conversation right here is like, trust but verify.
Yeah.
You're probably going to run into some, we don't even know half the things that are, I think I need a ingredients label on a lot of those products. Like, where did it come from? Who did? And at some point, we'll maybe even get to this. Okay, let's just think beyond this issue. Well, it was okay. How do we trust other things that we don't know every little thing about? Mm-hmm. How do we do that? Can you give me a couple of examples? How do you just trust something that you don't know a whole lot about all the things that are going on with it?
Oh, you have to find that friend.
Well, maybe it's I'm just saying the products that we use, mm-hmm. or something that we're subject to. Let's just say, all right, you have some things plugged into the wall.
Yeah.
All right. You leave them plugged in, you kind of trust them not to burn your house down. Why?
Because,
the United UL, right? It's UL certified.
And
like in other countries, yep. In other countries, when you buy something from the vendor down the street and you plug it in the wall and it causes a fire, mm-hmm. Right? So there's those systems in place, mm-hmm. That kind of test things and you trust it. And to be sold here in America, it's got to be UL certified, or for you to kind of just trust it, right? Oh, UL certified. Okay. We've gotten complacent with that. Like, yeah, we kind of trust all this stuff. There's a lot of stuff in the background making sure that it's okay for us. The usage is a different thing, but the product itself is kind of like trusted, right? Mm-hmm. How do you trust things? You trust a car. It gets tested for crashes. And then another agency goes, it's got a 5-star crash test rating. So you're kind of trusting that, right? That it's safe for your kids or your family to ride around in. Mm-hmm. Okay, now everything's got a 5-star crash rating, so there's no difference, but it's still there. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, how do you trust that? I think we need some of those same things with technology too. How do I trust that? It's got to be certified in some way. Some parts of technology that we use are, some are not. The problem, the Wild West of evolving technology, right?
Yeah.
The next loan we apply for?
Which one?
I don't know. Anyone. Is an algorithm going to tell them whether we're worthy or not?
Yeah, most likely.
Most likely. Will it be biased? I hope not.
Yeah, that's a tough one to think about, man. One thing that you brought up, though, is everything you talk about. I don't think that a lot of, when it goes back to jobs, right? So, and people looking for data people in this space, it doesn't seem like the ones I've had experience with, a lot of them just want free consultation. And that's a reason people can post fake jobs. And the more I've learned about websites and domain authority, the more I realize people have a lot of incentives to post a lot of fake jobs. Because they're never going to get called out on it. They get away with it, and it drives traffic to the website. And they get free consultation with experts on a domain that they don't know about. And I got sick of that shit, man. I'm like, I'm done giving away free freaking consultation. At least I could put it on a podcast and get more views.
What do you mean about that? Like,
well, let me tell you.
Yeah.
I've done too many.
Are you talking about you're answering a job search,
Mm-hmm.
and you're spending more time on it? It's just a dead end.
It's a dead end because
for you.
It's a dead end for me. It's a win-win-win for them because they're driving traffic. Any company's driving traffic to their website. You're never going to drive more traffic to a website than you will a job search.
You mean the third party, not the people that are hiring, but the Indeed or the
no, like
job.
Deaconess Hospital. Indeed drops a lot of fake jobs too, just to keep you more time on the platform. But like, let's say Deaconess Hospital, for example, or there's one called Two Barrels here in Spokane. They like to post a lot of fake jobs, and they keep the job postings up forever like because they're, one, trying to compete for the keywords, and two, they are not. They just want free consultation with experts. They don't have to actually hire anybody. They can just call you in for an interview, ask you how you would do this, this, and this, and then just use what you use.
Okay.
And then never
I think I'm beginning to get
you.
where you're getting at.
And it drives their website traffic and increases their domain authority.
Interesting.
There's a lot of reasons why people post fake jobs.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you can, if you legit do that, and I wonder how long you could do it for before you get a reputation. And that's like
that's the problem.
Yeah.
They're all fucking doing it. Corporate McDonald's is doing it. They're all doing it. They don't give a fuck. And knowing it's like, shit, should you be like that too? Because they don't have products or services their services aren't driving the traffic. Nothing drives traffic more than a job offer.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
You learn that shit the hard way.
But then again, me as I could be an employed person. I could work the jobs. It's a two-way street too. I could just be hunting for the next bigger thing, not even be serious about the job, but just like the fact that I know that not even be maybe even ready to move, but then have my fishing line out there too.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, it just takes so much effort to do nowadays to tailor something to tailor a job application. You know what I mean? Like,
that's one of the reasons
resume.
why they create fake jobs. They get enough of the experts in so they understand how to tailor what they're looking for, because they really don't know what a data scientist or a feature engineer or a data analyst is. They don't know.
That's the first thing we learned in my in the course that I was taking. To kind of go back to that, one of the first subject is these are what these titles mean today, right? Because they're evolving also, and so you're kind of tested on it, and you kind of learn what these different people do, and then you learn that with anything else, any other kind of career or profession, that some people do both. Some people in smaller companies, some people do a lot of that stuff. They are data engineers, and then they're data analysts, and then they're they're data. What's the other ones? The scientists.
Yeah,
so some people are doing all that. They're setting up the systems that they're doing the data analysis on. And they're actually the scientists themselves setting up the algorithms and the tests, and then some analysts that are kind of grabbing the information and analyzing it too, and then passing it off to the scientists, and then who are doing the modeling and all that, right? So some people are doing all that, and some people are like doing parts of those jobs, right? Like I only grab this data and clean it and store it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not, you know what I mean? I'm a data analyst, kind of.
Yeah,
kind of. But if you don't get to see the other end, you're just that person in the cubicle cutting and pasting, right? After a while. I don't want it to become that either.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that as a job. Well, to me, a data scientist has, in my mind, been the guy who can get the data, clean it, create a model, and reports on it, and then eventually deploy the model. And then monitor.
This is my favorite part about data analysis. Here it is. Ready? It's going to blow your mind again.
Get it.
Storytelling. It's so powerful.
So true.
It's so powerful.
Holy
and
shit.
Especially when you have the data behind. It's almost like, whoa, you are some sort of, it's really powerful. It's empowering, right? When you can tell that story and you have the data behind it. I just kind of quickly told you that story at the beginning of the cast when I said, hey, this is my capstone project. This is where developers are going. This is why developers are going there. But not just developers. It's because of businesses having a real business need for utilizing newer, rapidly evolving technologies to be competitive in a global digital transforming world, right? Not quite there yet, but really that's kind of the business climate too, and that's kind of why I'm so interested in it.
Yeah, it's important to notice that, and I'm glad you did
That's
that.
a story I just told you. Isn't it kind of compelling? But you have the data, like the developers are, and where is it going with? Okay, so if I'm a business, I'm like, so what do I do with my developer skills here? I have these people in these different groups. So where do we go with that? CIO? Where do we spend the money? How do I leverage that information for what I'm going to decide that our company is going to do to be competitive? It could be just adopting a lot of those adopting more of that open source stuff. Sending and paying for schools and certifications for my developers in my different fields, right? Could be. That's kind of how I put my capstone together to kind of be able to answer some of those questions. And the data's there. I think that Stack Overflow and data set, it's out there. It's open source. It's open data. Right? It's not open. You can find it on their website, but it's kind of telling where we're going to go with technology, but you're telling that story, and you can kind of walk people along that thought pattern. But you know what's even more powerful?
What?
When a year down the road it's true.
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, we wouldn't be here today if we didn't listen to you yesterday and make the decision, make the informed decision.
That creates influence.
Right? And then you get influence.
True influence.
Not saying you're going to hit a home run every time, though.
Yeah,
right?
but if you can become an oracle.
Well,
and that's what I love about it.
Isn't that true?
It's like, let's consult the bones. And then you throw the bones and you see how they fall.
But I think that's your challenge as a data scientist or data analyst, is to build your reputation. Don't go into a business and just kind of give them what they want and prove it with statistics and data and models. It's going on you. It's on you, right? It's on you to come up with the results that you feel are right from what you know and what you've been taught and how you've learned that to use the established principles. Right? Because it's too easy to I can show you it, right? We can, about this. I can show you, I can make data say whatever the hell you want it to say.
Yeah.
And that, my friend, is ethics. involved. It can be. We're getting into that area.
Yeah.
But
you can create dummy data.
Well, you don't have to create dummy data.
Synthetic data.
You can just use a model that you probably shouldn't be using.
Yeah, and get the wrong score. Overfit the motherfucker.
Right.
And it's not any good on real world data, but no one's the wiser. And they're still basing their home prices off of it. I got to use the little girl's room.
Okay.
I know. We'll keep going, but either way. But yeah, the whole creating a podcast, I think, is the new resume for the future, because that's how you can get credibility, expertise, and trustworthiness. If you can get people to have listened to what you have had to say and get to know you, by the time you get to an interview with somebody, they already have the backstory with you.
It's kind of practice. Mm-hmm. Practice makes perfect.
Oh yeah.
And when you're not everybody needs a job, but then you need to certainly be effective at communicating in your job.
Yeah, storytelling.
Yeah, storytelling's one part, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the more practice you have with that, I was wanting to say, this is my first podcast with you, but I've been preparing for this for over 50 years.
Good.
So I should be somewhat okay with it, right? I should be able to we should be able to talk about different things and not sit here and stare at each other.
Yeah.
But and effectively communicate those ideas. Mm-hmm. And that's where you're getting practice, right? Mm-hmm. Every day. I did, when you asked me to come on the podcast, I kind of looked up Joe Rogan, and I just kind of found the first thing that YouTube spit at me and watched him. And was he a comedian?
He was.
Okay,
he started as a comedian.
He's got comedian skills.
Oh yeah,
is what you're saying. Mm-hmm. So he can kind of stand up and talk to you for 2 hours straight. And he had another comedian. Does he typically have comedians on his
he'll
podcast?
have a random assortment.
Of people?
Comedians to experts in certain fields and that's what makes the podcast unique, is you're not getting typical comedian every time. You might get some guy who talks about global warming and he talks about it as an expert, and then he brings on somebody who's against global warming, and then it's pretty good. Yeah.
Wonder how I guess it starts to become a job every day, just talking to people. But
it's my favorite.
Right?
I mean, what I like about the podcast is when you get one started, if people believe in you, it's hard to, like you said, you've been waiting to have this conversation for 50 years. I think a lot of people
have been
waiting to have that conversation.
However old they are.
Yeah, to whatever audience is out there.
I think another thing, too, about, it's being, your podcast isn't, we're sitting here staring at each other, and that's kind of the format of a lot of other podcasts. You're in person. Hey.
Yeah.
Have some in-person skills. And some deep down humanistic quality things that we kind of, that's where we're at, right? Mm-hmm. That's where we like to kind of, I guess it's not having a conversation on the phone or in the video where I'm in control of that. I can see you shake your head. Yep. I can see you blink a bunch. Mm-hmm. I get a lot of feedback about what I'm saying or what direction we're going in. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? That's communications part of what you learn about in school, stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is where it rings true. This is where it rings true. And it makes sense, and you're like, oh, I get that. We need feedback as humans. We need to kind of, there's so much you can do online, but in social activity and posting here and there, but when you're talking with another person and then sharing that communication too. But I prefer to communicate in those ways. I don't know. I'm old school. 50 something.
Yeah. Well, you talk about that in storytelling. I think the most controversial thing I've ever data mined into has been the Tesla explosions, the Tesla car fatality explosions. And so Tesla publishes their deaths data set, which is literally just the tip of the iceberg compared to what is actually going on. But when you drive it, are you a Tesla driver?
No.
All right, good. Thank God. Because the only thing a Tesla driver can say when I'm done with everything I have to say with the data, with 7.7 million rows, is all they can say to me is you're wrong. And I can sit there and say, no, look, if we all drove Teslas, that would mean for every 1,000 deaths, 145 will involve fire. Currently, with the combustion engine, for every 10,000 deaths, only 30 will involve fire. Or its synonyms. Because when the Teslas crash and you get exposed oxygen to those battery packs, it creates thermal runaway.
Sure.
And it just...
Yeah.
So you're trapped in a crumpled car and you're roasting to death.
Right.
Yeah. It's crazy. But that's been the most controversial one.
Sure. I think...
some people get it. Some people... But the Tesla drivers, they're in a cult. They're like, no, my identity, money's going to this identity. So
sure, you're
wrong.
Well, maybe it's their way of making a statement.
That's
right? Like,
it.
we need to evolve into this age. I have whenever you just kind of bring up a point with me, whenever I see that, I'm like, well, yes, it's maybe less reliance on fossil fuels or whatever, but like, I'm always cautious about a new great solution to a problem because everyone I've practically ever sawed, seed, seenced, created new problems.
Yeah.
So it's okay. Just be a little skeptical. I mean, like, so where are all these batteries going to go? What dumps are they going to go in? How are you going to, what material did we create building the batteries? What waste do we create? Is it going to be worse? They're just questions. I'm not complaining.
I'm not complaining. To them.
Well, that's for another podcast. Okay. But like that's what I'm saying. Like there will be. We should be mindful that maybe EVs are not the end all be all. Of, I think what you're talking about batteries. Maybe we're just not there yet because we don't have a solid state battery. It's this chemical bomb that we're driving on, right?
It is a chemical bomb.
Yeah, basically. And it's toxic, too, when it catches on fire.
Yes, very carcinogenic.
You don't want to, like, I bet you some firemen have some serious issues for responding.
They have to destroy their fire suits when and they just let the Teslas burn. Because they can't put them out. No amount of water. Yeah. They don't use the fire foam because that shit doesn't put it out. And the fire foam is really carcinogenic too.
Yeah, because it's a. Well, I don't know. You need oxygen for everything. I was watching a show yesterday. I don't know what show it is, but it was a movie, and the guy's trying to help a lady get his car started, right? And he opens up the hood and he's looking. He's like, "Well, I have bad news for you." He goes, "You have spark." He goes, "Cars need two things to run on." He goes, "Fire, okay, and gas." And he goes, "Well, you've got fire, so I've got bad news for you. You're probably out of gas, right?" I'm like, well, that's not exactly true. You need three things.
Yeah, you do need three things. That's what
when did the fire touch your heating, right? I'm like, well, this guy's saying this. I'm like, that's dumb. Who's letting this guy say this on a movie, right? It's a modern day movie too, by the way. So I'm like, we need to send some people back to school, like, because there's 3 things you need. Mm-hmm. You need the fire tetrahedron, right? I don't know. I think that's still a thing for even batteries. They need that oxygen, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised that foams aren't able to help that, but we need. I think I've seen some similar things that you have, not just about Teslas, mm-hmm. but just about batteries alone, mm-hmm. How maybe dangerous they are. There are, I think there's a lot of people. Oh, there's another mm-hmm. thing too. I think a lot of people with batteries in their homes, okay, mm-hmm. and are storing them in their mm-hmm. homes, but don't really realize how dangerous they really could be. Like if something happened to them on their own, if they're okay, if they're being stored there, that's one thing. But if something happens to them, they fall and they get damaged on the like you just drop them on the ground and they get a little puncture in them, or they get you can. I've seen on this special where they took a hammer and just tapped on the top of these cells and they go off like a dominoes.
Yeah,
they just
thermal runaway.
They burn they really quickly, and they burn super hot, and you can't put them out. You're trying to battle them, and you can't put them out. You got to let them run through their. And what you said, like firefighters don't have a whole lot of choices. They kind of got to sit there and watch it run through its the stored energy that's mm-hmm. in all those chemicals. They're. You know what? At the beginning of what you were just talking about this, I was thinking, well, if I gave up my horse for a Model T, mm-hmm. I think the statistics would say I would probably get hurt driving that car around, or more likely die than falling off of a horse. And at first, it was horrible. There was, car crashes and people were getting hurt all the time. It's something that we kind of had to work our way through as society to kind of get to where we are now, right? With travel and traveling, we wanted to get there faster. We wanted to increase our distance. We didn't want to have to do a whole lot of maintenance and care with our transportation, horses. Mm-hmm. We don't have to clean up after them in the streets. A lot of benefits there, and we put up with a lot of things that were wrong with those vehicles, right? So you kind of, I think what I'm really trying to say here is like, we have a lot of modern day problems, but some of them aren't that modern. And when we're starting to evolve, we're like, I think it's important for us to kind of know our history too, and to be able to balance it out. Like, how big a problem is this really, or is this something that, that we're going to have to, we just can't let happen? Or is this something we're going to have to deal with, but just kind of over time, like maybe solid state battery. Once we kind of get to a solid state battery solution, all those Tesla fire problems are kind of solved. We're not going to have that anymore. Those solid state batteries don't catch on fire. They're pretty inert. Right? So and that's kind of, we're almost there. I think there's some solutions starting to evolve in that area. I think that's what a lot of the EV car manufacturers see. I don't know, maybe 10 years down the road, or 5 to 10 years, right? So this is just a temporary issue.
Yeah.
But I want to be warned if I find us, like, if there's any type of fire or you bump it or run over something and something gets punctured, get the heck out, right? Get the heck out. It's got to be, you have to inform your customer and the public about what those real dangers are. You can't be like
the thing is, they're coding it. They do inform the public, but it takes a person like me to find the answers.
Sure.
All they're doing is literally dropping a CSV file of their current ones that they have decided to record and investigate themselves.
Yeah, we have a National Transportation and Safety Board, though, that makes sure that
motherfuckers, that's a racket too. I mean,
I don't know. I'm from the air travel industry here, and those guys come in, thoroughly investigate. They make sure that they have to be informed. They go through a rigorous inspection when it comes to air travel. I'm talking about air travel.
Yeah,
okay.
No.
And they come in and the findings go out no matter what. A pilot could tell you on the radio on the way down, okay, I'm killing us. I want to die. I'm taking everyone with me. Okay. And he just flies it directly in the ground that looks to everyone else like he did that on purpose. Right. And, it was just a suicide thing or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it's blatantly, the NTSB doesn't care. They go through the same process if they don't know. And they answer all the questions, and they're that thorough about it. And they publish the report in the same way because it's an accident, and it's going to be investigated, and it's going to go in the record books, and we're going to use that as information to get better, right? And that's the part I wanted. I don't know how much we're seeing from our end on EVs. You know, I don't know that. You probably know a lot more about that, but I'm telling you, and it's international too. So all that information gets shared too. Something happens over in, especially with Boeing or some other manufactured aircraft in a different country.
Yeah,
it gets back. All right, and we're constantly trying to we're taking those things seriously, and we know that we have to be better, and we have to, if there's a problem there, we need to figure out what it is and fix it, right? That opens up a whole other can of worms about Boeing and some of the things that were going on over there. I might want to work there one day. I don't know.
Yeah,
so I'm not going to.
Never know.
I'm not going to.
Not gonna bash them.
Not going to bash them too bad. They do need to.
They need good people to work for them. They need good data analysts.
On that, there's a bunch of people. There's a bunch of good people that I've had the pleasure of working with, in the military, and in my adult life that work at that company, and they're good people, right? They're not just out to just make a buck and, just mess anybody up, right?
Yeah.
There are.
They couldn't even think that way with how corporate structured and rigorous.
Oh, you think?
Everything.
You think?
I'm assuming. With how anal everything is,
right,
like around aviation.
Well, whenever you talk about a big part of my career was safety. So whenever you talk about, and I think that's the direction this conversation's going, right?
Yeah.
When you talk about safety, it's easy to get, there's all these pits you can fall into, correct? It's easy to get you're just kind of laser focused on something, and you're not looking about what's coming in, what's going out, right? You're just doing your part. So and now a lot of that happened. I don't know if I want to quite get into that, the whole. But that's a whole other podcast, too, just talking about that whole process of what happened there. I think the important part, and what I'm talking about is, I'm talking about flight control systems that don't work properly on redesigned aircraft and cause crashes on Boeing aircraft. The 737 MAX, the MAX, right?
No, so the lower the number, the bigger the thing, the bigger the plane, right?
No,
okay.
It doesn't work like that anymore.
It's a bigger number, bigger plane.
No, doesn't work like that.
I don't know.
Okay, how
is a 747 bigger than a 757?
Oh, the 767 smaller than the 747.
So the bigger the number, the smaller the plane. No.
Could be.
It's
maybe
just random modeling.
No, it's random.
Okay.
I don't know if it's random. Okay, I don't know. But all I know is I don't judge the size of the plane by the number on it. Yeah. It just doesn't seem to work. And 747 is a good example. Boeing 707 is much smaller. It's the size of the KC-135 tankers flying around Fairchild. That's a Boeing 707. Right? The new tanker that Fairchild might get someday is a 767.
So is that bigger?
No, it's almost the same size.
Just different model.
It's newer. The 747's one of the biggest passenger aircraft out there, right? Well, there's bigger ones, but like for us. So doesn't go by number, bro.
Okay, all right.
You want it to? You want it to, data scientist?
I want it to conform in my head, because somebody once told me that the bigger the number, the smaller the number, the bigger the plane, or it might have been vice versa. But
Liars.
I don't know.
They lied to you.
Well, they were grunts anyway. They're Marine grunts, so I couldn't listen to them.
So they know what they're talking about.
No, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They're Marine grunt.
I won't talk about whatever a Marine might. I won't talk about rockets.
Oh yeah,
shoulder fired rockets. You don't talk about aircraft.
Well,
fair,
dude. You know what's fair to talk about is the war in Ukraine. Yeah. And how that has changed significantly. So I'm noticing all these amazing employment of drones.
Okay.
For drone warfare, like kamikaze drones and people. Because I watch this shit all the time on YouTube. It's like, wow, you can watch the gladiator match live on YouTube, and the Ukrainians are just dropping thermite grenades into Russian tanks, and so
how'd you like to be on the battlefield now with drones around?
That would scare the shit out of me.
It's scary.
And I'm watching what they're doing wrong too, and I think about basic tactics. So I'm watching these Russians, and they're Russians because they're wearing the little tags, the red tags on their helmets and shit, and they're running into the bunker. In trench warfare too. That's what has been resulted in, is trench warfare, just reduction to artillery, and just massive artillery striking. And but the death of tanks is something I've noticed too. The death of tank warfare, and the U.S. we've stopped creating Abrams. We stopped tanks altogether.
My guess, you want to know?
Sure.
You have, if you're high-ranking military, you have to have a battle plan, and that battle plan consists of it's called a national defense strategy. You have to have a strategy. So they're all published strategies at each level. Like one's like national defense strategy, one's national strategy, and they all kind of tier down off of each other. Yeah. All right, and then you have your your defense forces strategy. So, some of those strategies come up with the assumptions that, we're not kind of fighting on the ground toe-to-toe anymore. We want to include in this strategy, it's a strategy, remember? Mm-hmm. So, it's kind of being vague about your warfare, not the specific things we're not going to be like, I want drones. No, but it's maybe remote things that instead of like a soldier with a gun in their hand. But you want to be able to kind of, the strategy part's big. It's we want to be able to fight in these two places. Those strategies used to look like this. We want to fight on two continents or two separate big things, big occupations, or however, we're going to have to do that. That strategy probably doesn't exist anymore. It's probably more looks like we're going to have to fight a lot of smaller things here and there, and not big. And those tanks came with big logistics. Got to put them. How do you get them around? Got to put them in big aircraft, really expensive to maintain fleets to haul tanks around. You got to put them on merchant marine vessels and marine ships and stuff and ship them around. You got to put them on trains. Do you know that a lot of the big stuff that was in Afghanistan Afghanistan's one of those landlocked. So basically this discussion is about logistics, right?
Yeah, which is an important part of warfare.
Right. I think a lot of those logistics have changed, and that's why maybe you don't see tanks. But in order to get anything big into Afghanistan, there's only a couple ways to do it. Right? It's by truck, slow, maybe big flatbed over not approved like major highways or anything, right? Then there's only so many countries you need to get permission to go through. We probably weren't going to get permission for. So a little bit, I was kind of like involved in kind of getting out of Afghanistan.
Or the dropping of the tanks from the air.
A lot of the stuff
in the parachute blossoms.
A lot of the stuff came on trains, Russian trains. How does that happen? Right? You're looking at me like it's like new news to you. But,
it is.
And some of those rules are like, well, you can't put a tank on the train, but you can put a truck on a train. Mm-hmm. We'll take a truck, or you can put the pieces on there, but then you got to assemble it when you're in country. So all that logistics is happening. We have a whole. The United States has a whole other command, transportation command. You ever heard of those guys?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Some generals running those, right? That's a big deal. Logistics, moving stuff around. It's easy. It's probably easier to get something to a port. How would you move a tank to Afghanistan, or Ukraine? You probably have to move it. Yeah, airdrop.
That's
expensive, man.
Yeah,
and
that's the only way I've seen them do a lot of shit. Like in Helmand
very few and far between, my friend.
Yeah.
You can't do a big force like that. It can happen. It's onesie twosies here and there.
Other than that, no. Yeah. Tanks in Afghanistan, I didn't see a single tank.
No, it's too hard to move that big stuff around.
It was illogical to have one.
But though, here's the other end. How do you support it? You got a tank track fall off or need to be fixed?
Dude, yeah, you have to have.
How easy is it to take it out of commission, right?
Bring it back to a tank place to make it work. I mean, I think mechanized warfare is kind of cool. You know,
that's my job.
It's working.
That was my job. Mm-hmm. That part of logistics is kind of where I grew up and was, before I retired, was good at. Was supporting aircraft in those areas, in those campaigns. Mm-hmm. And you get the logistics sort of hem you in at some point. You're like, I can only get so many parts here. I'm so many days away. But all that's kind of should be classified, because the more you know about that stuff, the more you can disrupt it, right, as an enemy. So if you're like, well, all my aircraft, I need this one part for, and there's only one manufacturer in the world that makes it, you probably wouldn't want that to get out.
No.
Because it'd be easy for the enemy to kind of get you and get your logistics supply and not even have to worry about fighting you on the battlefield.
Fucking sabotage all the industrial processing of it.
Right. But when you're designing something like that, that's kind of why the reason people maybe get mad. But when you build a tank like that, there's probably get parts from 6 different companies. And part of that's to spread the wealth of the taxpayer's dollar around, and you know what I mean? Part of it's protecting your supply chain.
Yeah.
Right? But it makes for an ugly end product because you're trying to diversify your supply chain for strength, but then you have to enforce all the particulars about how you need that part to work, right? Like the specifications, or the testing that has to go on, and like this part from this one company breaks all the time, this part from the other company doesn't. Mm-hmm. Right? So but they're supposed to be the same part and built to the same standard, but you don't get that when you spread it around, and you have to manage that whole process too, supply chain management, right? So you have to bring the stuff into the next level, test it yourself, make sure that one guy's making that part that doesn't break a whole lot, right? That's your job.
No, I totally understand
what
you're talking about.
Logistics will hem you in.
Aircraft logistics is exactly like that.
Yeah.
Those parts are being made by different bidders. And you have to
in the military world, absolutely, yeah. But then they're pretty good standards. The people who are in aerospace nowadays know that they won't be in business if they can't maintain a standard Boeing's really good about supply chain management and diversifying their supply chain, maybe to the point where some of the people in their diversified supply chain don't like that idea that I'm not the only one on the block supplying you. Yuck, right? Like you could easily tell me to hit the street, right? Because they have choices maybe you don't as a manufacturer, right? And so the power goes to, and we learned this in business, is it the supplier anymore that has the power? No, that power shifts to the buyer, right? Right?
Yeah.
And if you diversify now I'm in control. I'm like, I got you guys competing against each other. That's just business, right? It's just business tactics.
That's beautiful.
Well, that's how Boeing's really good at managing their supply chain that way, and believes in its diversity. If you think about it too, air travel is only increasing in the next. This is another part of my thesis that I wrote about like Raytheon, but Raytheon is trying to kind of divest a little bit in their military part of their business and to kind of invest a little more in their civilian aircraft part of their business, which is, when I said Collins Aerospace is over here is a subsidiary of Raytheon. They make brakes for aircraft, right? So they're trying, and then they acquired Collins, I don't know, in this recently, and added them to a part of their business because they're like, oh, you supply civilian air. So the new aircraft that are being produced are probably going to have Raytheon brakes on them, right? Amongst other things. But interior cabins, all kinds of stuff Collins Aerospace makes, right? So when I'm in a business and I'm largely dependent on government contracts, how do I diversify myself but still stay in aerospace? I'm doing civilian aerospace too. I have both of those customers, right? And so that's what Raytheon, as they're getting bigger and bigger, and they have to get bigger to compete with other aerospace like Boeing, Airbus for military contracts, stuff like that. They don't build aircraft outright, right? Not like Airbus and Boeing does, but they definitely are part of that. The brakes that they make here are going on the new 767 or the new 787 or whatever they're building for the next fleets that are going to be built for customers. So there's a lot of orders out there for air travel. We think the climate is, since COVID, that it's time to buy aircraft. It's time to retire some of the older ones and buy new ones and expand, right? That whole industry is like, well, so how do you expand to buy more aircraft? More countries too are becoming more evolved and are buying their own fleets and running their own airlines. You're seeing that more and more, right? So yeah, the world's evolving. Those countries that didn't used to have their own airlines have their own airlines. Where are they going to get those aircraft from? They're not going to make them themselves. They have to order them. And there's only really two big places to order large passenger carrying aircraft. And they are
Boeing and Airbus?
Pretty much. I mean, that's kind of like a monopoly, if you ask me. There are some other smaller airline
like
companies.
Virgin Airlines?
Virgin's just an airline, but they fly.
Oh,
they don't fly they don't make their own aircraft, right? So this is an airline. Airlines need aircraft to stay in business. Aircraft don't last forever. They have a lifespan. You can keep fixing them, but at some point, your public demand for maybe like a little more elbow room or putting in those new like sleeper things, and I've seen all kinds of things. Like they're tiering now. Have you seen some of those new aircraft seats?
No.
Where they have them tiered, like someone behind you will be sitting above you.
Okay.
And there's someone slightly behind it underneath you if you're sitting above.
Interesting.
And they're kind of like staggered that way, and they can fit more people in.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, they're trying to funky new ways, like sit people kind of like, instead of sitting facing forward, sitting facing at a 45-degree angle.
Oh, okay.
And maybe they can be more efficient with stacking people in there. We got some brilliant engineers. Engineering programs are awesome nowadays. They're really, really tough, but they're putting out some great people. The whole system is like, man, people are smart. You know, we can figure our way out of problems. We just need to work together to do it. I mean, stop pointing fingers and start coming up with solutions, supporting things that foster solutions that work for us. Right?
Yeah.
Want me to blow your mind again on a new subject?
Go ahead.
Okay. How many billion people are on the earth?
I guess 5.
Probably more. It's pushing 8, I think. Now.
Okay.
7 or 8. Right?
Okay.
I think we're at least 7 billion. Maybe your podcasters
I'm guessing 5 because the sun is like 5 billion.
Maybe we can run a Discord here, and like that would be great, right? Run a Discord and a chat right next to it as you're doing your pod, and you can have people just, because a lot of I haven't watched them in a while. What's the video game where you can simulcast yourself playing video game? Twitch, right?
Twitch, yeah.
They always have their Twitch. They're kind of their lives. You can live stream and you can play, or you can just BS like we are. And then they have their chatters that are they're regular people who are listening to them, but they have the ability to chat, give you a little feedback. And they're always looking at their they're always looking at their like chat people, and they're like, hey, and they're calling them chat. Like, hey, chat, you watch Twitch?
No, I need to watch it.
Oh, yeah. So they're going, hey, chat, like, how many billion people? And they'll get an answer, like, as fast as somebody can. Wow. And they're like, you'll see it stream up, like, 7, 8, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 5, 4, 3, like, oh, it's mostly 6. Mostly people are saying 6 billion people in the world. Whatever. How did they count all those people? Just a question. How do you count 6 billion people on the planet? I got another question for you. How many people can the planet support?
I don't know. Food,
water, oxygen, ways of life. How much garbage do we produce? Right? Your average American is probably a little more. I don't know. I don't know what these answers are, but I'm just gonna go say something that I'm not even qualified to say. But I would gather to say let's put this in a different way. I suspect that your average American is a little more damaging to the, with waste. Mm-hmm. Produces probably a little more waste than your average person on the earth.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, if there's a Pareto principle for the amount of waste being produced, shit.
But so the rest of the world, they can't produce as much waste as we do. We would run out in a week, places to put all the waste. So everyone can't live to the same standard. And then everyone can't have the style of life that equal, right? Because some people produce more, some people produce less. We have 7 billion people on this planet. I don't know who's counting them or how they get counted. But
you realize we're the richest 1% of the world. is right here on the West Coast.
So why does everyone? Okay, and then so we only sell shit to each other?
No.
Oh, we buy a lot. We import a lot of stuff.
Import a lot.
So why are we fighting with those people?
That's a good point.
We're their best customer.
A lot of trash.
Why would you mess with your best customer?
Yeah, you shouldn't.
But here's the deal. Would you want to take them down, or would you want them to want more stuff?
I would want them to want to buy more shit and be consumers and go to McDonald's every day.
It's just a basic concept. So I'm just thinking about our relationship with China, right? I mean,
oh yeah, there's no denying what they want to do. I'm just
Joe average person, right? Just Joe average person. But I'm like, why is China should love us? We're their best customer, probably. And their customer that's probably going to, I think what they're seeing is other economies around the world start to consume more, that they're not as concerned about us. Okay. And we're just a big part of the puzzle, but we're still a part. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I can't, an example of that is South America, like Brazil and some things like a lot of auto manufacturers have plants down there and have had since the 70s, right? Yeah. And so we're not the only car driving, everyone's got to have a car or truck or whatever down there. Down there, it's that economy's evolved to the point where everyone's got a vehicle now, right? And it's a lot of the car companies saw in that emerging economy, saw a lot of potential, right? And we got that. There's that stuff going on. All these other economies are emerging, and they're consuming more too, right? And there's a market there, and we have to tap into that market, be global. Have to be. And so, Ford, just an example, sells in how many countries, and which countries are growing? So, would we? I don't know. Would we be concerned about not selling to China? I'm not. I don't think so. I think there's plenty of room for growth. It'll eventually happen. It probably happen in some degree, but you can't control that stuff either. In other economies, maybe like Brazil, all we do is put somebody in power that we like, and then we can sell a bunch of automobiles down there.
Yeah.
Or we might be able to affect, having favorable terms with the local government to be able to do business down there. So that's another podcast, because there's some stories about how things evolved in South America, about how businesses evolved in South America, and there's some dirty stories. Right.
Yeah, I don't think that's any secret.
It's not a secret.
What I wonder is going to happen is our dynamic now that a lot of our manufacturing is going to Mexico because they're a third of the price and they're 3 times more skilled.
Okay.
And so we got our manufacturing going down in Mexico. We have the president of Mexico flat out saying, we don't have a cartel problem. We don't make fentanyl. So how's that going to work?
Yeah.
But at the same time, all these car manufacturers are manufacturing down in Mexico.
Right.
And we're moving it from China to Mexico, our manufacturing is the slow thing.
Do you want a bunch of, do you want a bunch of manufacturing plants in your backyard? I don't think Americans do. I think they want the jobs. Mm-hmm. Okay, but I don't think we want all these plants going up. Would you? Yeah. Would you like to turn this into a mini China? Not with the politics and not with how we control people, but the industrial part. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I wouldn't want us to be that industrious. Would you? Because if you remember Beijing, they had to shut down all the plants so they could just see, the air quality would be just good enough for the athletes to even want to go there. Mm-hmm. there are some industrious areas there that are like not healthy to live, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, but so it comes with a price, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's not one or the other. It's not black or it's white. It's gray. I think you want my opinion, where I'm here sitting with you, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong. I don't know, but here's an idea. The idea is like, yeah, we want to be in manufacturing, but the cool new stuff, robotics maybe, materials like maybe carbon fibers or some newer type materials, because we have the education system to support the people who can design and work and do that stuff. Maybe designing agricultural, we're already kind of doing some of that stuff. Like, how can you get more out of a square piece of land to feed 7 billion people? Mm-hmm. Washington State University is doing a lot of that down south here too, right? How can you build, how can you feed? And they have that in mind. How can we effectively feed the world? There's irrigation drip. Have you heard about those too? Like how efficient in low water atmospheres, where they can set up irrigation dripping. So I don't have to wait for it to rain naturally. Okay, I can use irrigation, but drip it instead of just spray it all over the ground. But drip it just good enough to grow the thing that I need to grow.
That's cool.
The efficient use of water. We don't need, and so there's a lot of stuff going on in that arena, right? I think that's pretty interesting. Drip irrigation, or maybe just using water really efficiently. Don't know. See, it's a new solution to a problem, right? But maybe there's a reason why we need to spray water everywhere, and it can go back into the ground and groundwater, recycle, and you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Maybe we do need to do that, and we just haven't figured out all the problems that drip irrigation will cause, because it fixes another problem.
Yeah, it might create a new drought. New dust
who knows, right?
Because the water wasn't getting.
I think we need to figure out what that information is enough to make a good decision about whether that's going to work or not, and why we should do it. It's still new. It's not the end-all, be-all, probably, right? Maybe drip irrigation's been around for 100 years. I don't know, but it doesn't seem like we're using it. It seems like a pretty cool way to use a resource efficiently. Mm-hmm. Water.
Yeah.
Right. And that if you can grow things pretty efficiently, maybe you don't need to, I know water is a big problem in California. Mm-hmm. Water rights, especially around Los Angeles.
Yeah. Yeah,
because
neighbors get anal in HOA if you they'll water shame you for having your hose go out.
You got to know about your history.
You get fined for that in the city of Oceanside for having water go out in the street.
There's no reason why LA should even be there. Mm-hmm. Because there's no natural. Okay, I got another question. I got a quiz for you. I'm going to play with you right here, right? Okay. What's the biggest one of the oldest cities in the U.S., and can you name them by size?
The biggest and oldest, I'll start with New York.
Populous, too, and still populous, right?
Yeah.
Easy one. You can get it. New York, right?
Well, New York, sure.
How many natural rivers flow through New York? And I don't expect you to know.
I know there's the Delaware, and somebody and the pilot landed
So a couple pretty significant rivers flow through that city or by it. Okay? Name another city, big populous city in the U.S. Maybe that you can guess just a big city. First thing rolls off your head.
L.A.?
Okay, besides L.A.
So, but it's got to be old, okay?
Yeah.
So then Chicago?
Sure.
All right. Yeah.
How many rivers run through that city?
I know there's for sure one. There is
one
a river.
Big one? Yeah. Yeah. I don't know all my water. I'm not a water. But okay, name another big one.
Well,
you can go there. Chicago's probably second or third.
Orleans.
It probably goes like this, right? It goes New York, L.A., Chicago. And then I start to lose track after that, maybe. Those are the big three, I think, right? And in that order. But then after that, every other city you name, Philadelphia, river. Pittsburgh, river. Rivers. Three rivers. Right? Three River Stadium.
Okay.
Name another big one.
Well, I guess there's Louisiana down in New Orleans.
Yeah, New Orleans.
Yeah,
river.
Got that river. Our old city.
River. What's that river? The
Mississippi. Mighty Miss.
Mississippi.
Yeah.
You know, like most of the United States rivers feed that river. Like most.
I believe it. Yeah.
That is that river is so valuable to the United States, you wouldn't believe it. And just go look up a water tributary to the Mississippi. It's amazing. As far out as like you wouldn't believe, and you wouldn't believe if you looked at a map. Because I was doing some stuff on, I was plotting some stuff on maps and using map layering and my data analytics stuff, right? And then you run across all this other type of tributary maps and population maps and stuff like that. One caution, going back to data analytics, is we were cautioned when we were looking at those maps that when you plot a map, when you use a map to plot data on, you have to be cautious that you're not just plotting a population.
Okay.
Because I could say, where are most of the U.S.'s EV car owners, right? And all it is maybe a population map, all down the East Coast and then in L.A.
Okay.
Well, that's just a population map. If you look at it, if you population map, EV map, same.
Yeah,
that's because why? Because everybody that has one lives in a high population area.
Same with Seattle.
It'll just ring out true every time. So it's like one of those things. Like I can get data to tell you anything. If I know that as a data scientist, and you just want a population map, I can give you a map and say this is real data. It's really there, but it's not right.
Yeah,
because you have to ask another question to figure out that the answer you're really trying to get if you're looking at, because it's just a population map. I'm going to sell more EVs in areas where there's more people. Duh. Yeah. You don't need a data scientist for that.
Yeah, that's true. Isn't that some shit? And that's kind of like the way I saw with a lot of voting data too.
Yeah.
I learned something with is a new one for you. This might be controversial, probably not though. If you have a solar panels that are closer to the equator produce more energy than the ones further away from the equator.
Why? Because they're closer to the sun?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, really, solar panels, like, you're going to get me on the solar panels, right? Okay. I can tell you, I can talk about pretty much anything.
Dude, I did this whole study on solar panels.
Okay, well, I think we need to study them some more. There's enough to tell you that certain climates just won't. Unlike today, if I had a solar panel out, it probably wouldn't produce very much, right? Yeah. If I live in sunny California, it probably produce all day long, all year long. So good for them. Bad for us. Bad for Seattle. Seattle can't have solar panels, right? Why? No sunlight.
Yeah. And that's
period. Yeah. End. Just do your study, and is right. So I see people put solar panels on their house, and there's a study that someone texted me the other day. Your solar study is ready for you. We did one on your house, and they texted me, and they just want to sell me solar panels, right? They want to sell me but they're going to come in and they're going to story tell with statistics, aren't they? Aren't they?
Yes.
They will. You have so many days of sunlight, you'll produce so many kilojoules of electricity, you'll feed that back, and then you'll get a certain amount of credit back, and these things will pay for themselves, and then you will lower your energy bill. something like that. The story goes something like that, right?
You can sell it back to a Vista.
There's two types of, I think basically if you're talking about home, right? There's two types. No, there's two types of solar energy that you can use. It's stored or it's grid.
Yeah, most people are on grid.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you're on grid, you're just, that energy never hits your house. It goes back to a Vista. And a Vista gives you a fraction of the credit back for it. You don't get full credit at their rate, right? You get a producer's rate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, you're right. The one thing about the study I found was that the panels from Washington State were producing significantly more than a lot of the other panels, but that's because whatever panels they're using in Washington are newer.
Right. So the technology is like per square inch.
And they're using more silver too. So I wonder about the price per silver bag.
Yeah.
So you talk about solar.
Right. Price per square inch, or amount of electricity per square inch, or price per square inch. But technology is evolving. That's getting better. The new technology in solar is able to produce more with less and make it more viable. But it depends on your atmosphere that your solar panel's in. And it depends on it largely depends if you're living if you're talking about grid solar, is your energy company and what they're paying. And they're your customer, and if they want to change their rates, it could change your plan. I was just talking about how you're kind of hemmed in with your energy company. So you're kind of, when you buy solar panels, if you're on grid, it's you and them. That's it. You bought a solar panel from a company, all right? And it's it's just you making deals with the local Vista. That's it. That's how you get along. So is it a long-term commitment? Are you going to get paid back at that rate until 10 years until you pay off your solar panels? How you get your investment back? It seems like a little bit of it's not quite proven yet. Right? Not quite yet. Early adopters are probably But I don't like all that. Okay, here's another thing. I just saw in my neighborhood, and I'm getting solared. You know, they found out where I'm at. They found my phone number out somehow, and they're giving me estimates, and they're saying they're wanting to sell me solar, right? Yeah. So I'm looking out my kitchen window a couple weekends ago, and my neighbor across the street, I can see him. He's got a really 2-story tall house, right? There's no mid-level, and they're way up on it, and they're just it took them like a day. Those guys came out in the morning, and they had that thing up and running that day, right? One whole side of his house, just nothing but solar panels. Okay? The house is that house over there. If I remember when they built it while I lived in my house. 10 or 12 years old. What happens when you want to change the roof? When you need new shingles?
That's a good point.
You got to tear all that off. You got to tear it all, because that roof isn't going to last forever. You got to, and I know it's all pretty compartmentalized. They have, like, you know what I mean? It's pretty. There's another word for it, but it's pretty modular, right? So you can pull up the panels and take them and disconnect them and take them off. You can pull up there's these little routing units that hook up all the panels, or somehow, right? They probably get some sort of feedback too and monitor stuff, whatever. So there's a little box up there too that's monitoring, or maybe it's built in the back of the panel, right? But so you can pull the panels up, but there's they screwed something into the, you got to pull all those up too, and then change the roof, and then you're good for maybe another, 15, 20 years. Mm-hmm. What if there's a problem? You got to go up there, have somebody pull that panel up. Like, I don't know. How many holes did they screw in your roof when they put a bracket up there? Mm-hmm. You going to have a leak somewhere?
And did they hit a joist?
I don't know, right? Yeah. Don't mess with my roof, bro, is what I think I'm saying. I'm like, I'd rather just, put it on some stilts in my backyard. So it's right. Yeah. Don't mess with my roof. I don't know. I don't know what those answers are. There's plenty of people stick them up on the roofs and just deal with it.
Here's the thing: is a lot of people don't fulfill their first mortgage, so they usually sell the house.
Oh, you're getting me on mortgage now?
Yeah. Well, the more important question is investing. Like,
why do you feel okay? I'm gonna pin you down, right?
Okay.
I'm gonna pin you down. So I'm getting my finance cap out now, right? You just brought out mortgage, but I'm a business student, so I have this whole finance side, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Why do I need to pay my house off? That's your first assumption. I'm just gonna ask you. I'm not criticizing. I'm like, why do you think you have to pay your house off? You want to own it?
You'll never own it.
Well, even if you did, what would you do with it? Not pay a mortgage payment, right?
Yeah.
Put that money somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay, where would you put the money? The mortgage payment that you would make, what would you spend that on?
The mortgage payment that I would.
Right. It's like, okay, so 15 year. I got a 30 year. I got a 30. Okay, I'll do an investment different. I have a 30-year mortgage, right? I'll just throw a number at it. Paying $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month for it. It's probably like, okay, you have a 15-year mortgage. You pay $3,000 a month for, right? Right. Okay. Let's just say we're neighbors, all right, and we have the same size house. Because you're paying more for a shorter amount of time, right? Mm-hmm. You get yours paid off. And you have $3,000 a month to spend extra now, okay? I'm into it for 15 years, but I paid less. It depends on my situation, right? So I've had $1,000 extra a month for that entire 15 years, okay, that I've just spent on other things that I think I might need. So we have to make those decisions, whether we want to buy our house or a little extra money here and there. But my point is, it's an investment. It's a real estate investment. If you think about it like that, okay, a home is a real estate investment because you don't own it. You're making payments on it, right? You're just putting money into it. Well, and the bank says you own part of it, right? I'm like, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with never owning my own home. If you think about that, as long as it's kind of creating equity and it's growing, let's just say, I think that my house is about 20 years old now. It's in a neighborhood that's pretty populated, and the neighborhood's starting to go down. I've seen it happen. I've lived there for, I'm not talking from experience, but I'm just hypothetically.
That
literally
happens all the time.
It happens all the time, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, that's an investment. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's we shouldn't really do a podcast about investments because there's a bazillion of them, and they're a lot better than what we could probably. What's her name? Sally. Oh, that investment person. She does a really great podcast about money and what to do with it. But I don't know if I'd want to. You probably don't want to own your own home. If you do, what would you? Here's my other question: what would you do with the extra money? Would you go out and buy another home?
No.
Why?
What I do is I go back to Warren Buffett stuff. So I invest in companies that are good, that produce a product or service that you use, companies that have been around before you, that'll be around long after you're gone. When I look at their 5 and their max on their charts that go out of 45, most importantly, companies that pay a dividend, because a dividend's a tax-free compensation for risk.
Sure, it is. But you can do that. You can do that like $1,000 a month. You're still going to save $3,000. Go out and buy some more real estate. I mean, like, if you get to pick the place, right? You become savvy as you get older about what's good real estate, what's bad, what's public knowledge in your investment, right? Oh, there's going to be a school going over there, or Spokane's going to expand out here and put some new roads in, or that North Corridor is going to get finished, and then there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff around that. Blah, 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 blah. That's why politics is important for real estate.
Yeah.
And you just told me who's one of the biggest contributors?
The Real Estate Action Committee. And then the last guest I had on, he talked about how much money you're actually paying because of commissions on real estate agents.
Yeah, don't get me started. That's a little boondoggle right there. I did see that there's some laws changing over that.
There should be, since people got sued for antitrust laws.
Yeah, there's some. My dad just sold his house, and he had part of his fee from the realtor goes to the realtor of the person who bought his house.
Yeah.
Why?
I know, it's bullshit. And you know what else is bullshit?
Why?
Escrow and title insurance. Title insurance is fucking bullshit.
Okay, when you're moving around large amounts of money, escrow is a good idea.
Yeah.
Because when I actually do this transaction, it's got to be a trusted third party. When I actually do this transaction, okay, you're going to sell me your $500,000 home, okay? I'm going to buy it. I'll buy it for cash. We'll just, okay? What do? Write you a check and then you slip me the deed at the same time? And then there's a whole bunch of other things that need to get done in the other process. So you put it in escrow, and and the third party goes, you pay this, you pay that, okay, out of escrow, and then you get this check, I get that check. Safe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But right, that escrow is pretty important to the nature of I may have had that little parts of that wrong, but that's kind of the generalized idea, is that, like, man, who do you trust with that amount, with this kind of a big transaction? And you don't want to get ripped off on who owes who. And banks don't want to deal with it either, because banks need you to own that home so that they have some collateral for when you don't pay, right? And so they're really interested another party. So you have all these parties that are interested. They want but escrow is a safe place to kind of do all those transactions.
That makes sense.
In a fair manner. Yeah.
But I think title insurance is bullshit. Because if the title is fucked up, it's the county's fault. And there's going to be a lot of proof that your shit was processed with the county.
Okay.
So a title insurance is bullshit.
Yeah. Okay, so you're not a homeowner, but okay, when I sold my first home in Washington, okay?
Oh, you were a real estate agent?
No, I mean, like, I sold my first home.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'm tripping. All right, I'm tripping.
No, I'm not a real estate agent. Nor do I want to be.
You should consider getting the license.
It's pretty competitive, though. It's pretty competitive and a little political. Okay, around here, right? Just say that. I was sitting at the title place, and I remember, this is like a few years ago, by the way. But I can remember what your just numbers are being flashed in front of your faces and papers are being put in front of you. Somebody's going, here's this title agency, right? They're explaining to you, sign here, initial here. And you're just going through the process. And it was my first home I was selling, right? So I sold the house, and I kind of you do the math in your head when you're selling the house. You're like, well, shit, we owe this on the house. This was the sales price. The difference is roughly, with a few fees here and there, is my my equity, right? I get to go put that down on a new house. I get to come out of that with a check, right? And that number was lower than I thought it would be. And one of the reasons why was there was I can't remember now. I'm going to say this wrong. It was like a 5 or 6% excise. It wasn't 3%, 3.6, something like that. What's the state of Washington? Real estate excise tax. And it's kind of a big number when you're selling a home. And it sits off there and they're like, initial this sign here. And they're like, that comes off of your equity. Right? Because it's a thing you just pay. It's a tax on the sale of your real estate. And I'm like, why do I have to pay to sell? Why do I have to pay the state of Washington a tax?
And they have county excise tax too.
To sell my house. What did they do for me, or what do I get out of that? Why? Where does that money go? It used to, and I looked it up. I'm like, this bothers me. I'm just one of those right brain. So I went, okay, well, if that X amount of dollars came off of my equity and is supposed to go to this good reason or whatever it's going, like, why does the state of Washington need that money? Right? Because every time a home is bought or sold in the state of Washington, Washington gets paid. The more it happens, the more they get paid. What is that money for? Is it for them to like keep fair laws in the state to sell stuff? Like how, what? Usually when you get taxed, okay, gas tax, whatever, build roads, you have answer. You have kind of, there's things in line that are logical that kind of make sense to you. They're like, oh, maybe gas tax is another weird, a whole other podcast too, right? But you can kind of logically think in your mind, well, they need to keep up infrastructure for that, right? And it's a use tax too. So the more I use gas, the more I get taxed. Probably the more road I'm going to use or be on, or, like use it up because I'm the driver, right? Driving on it, right? It's kind of a use thing. And it makes sense to you in the ecosystem of transportation, right? Selling a house? What's that go to?
Probably mostly social programs. And I'm going to
guess. Social? Yeah, like, so, wait. We're getting into politics, I know. I don't want to get too far down this road. But me, like, come on, man. It used to go to schools or something. It used to be like, and then what I found out, and this is like 15, almost 20 years ago, when I found out, it gets dumped into the general fund. Every time, I'm like, that could be billions. Look at the prices of homes now. And I don't think that tax has ever gone down, but prices of homes have gone up. So like, here's what I'm saying. I just think it's a huge way for the state to get money to do stuff with.
And charge you property tax every year on top of that?
Yeah, well, I kind of thought it was unfair. Like, well, doesn't that ecosystem evolve off of property tax for a home, right? A home's ecosystem, like, maintain my property, use some of that property to build schools or do something or improve the land, or, you know what I mean? Drainage areas or whatever they got to do, maintain a water system or what, property tax. Got it. Makes sense to me. It's just like gas tax. I'm like, I kind of got that. Taxing me on the sales of my home, it's sort of like,
They'll tax you on the sale of your home even if you took it at a loss. But if you sell a stock and you took it at a loss, you don't get taxed. There's no capital gains tax for that. And there's no tax just for owning a share of stock every year.
I can't put the two and two together. It doesn't make sense to me. And people just do it. They just like, it's a line item. But it's a significant line item.
Yeah.
It's like when you talk about $100,000 house, well, times 4, times
so
5.
400,000 will get you a shack around here. So.
But what's 3% of 500,000?
3% on 400,000 of 6%
Yeah, it's 12
on 400,000. So two
12,000
real estate
bucks.
agents
Yeah.
is $24,000. And then if
Yeah.
you were to amortize that over the 30-year life of the mortgage, it's way more.
No, I'm just talking about what tax you pay for selling your house.
Yeah.
I sell $400,000 house. It's $12,000.
So yeah, for sure.
3%.
$12,000.
Excise sales tax. Real estate excise sales tax. Something like that, right? It just sticks with you. It's like, what am I getting for that? What's the purpose of it? You know, the person at the title agency couldn't explain it to me. But they're supposed to kind of know that. So it just goes into the tax fund. That wasn't a good enough answer for me.
Dude,
it's a large line item in the sale of your home.
Yeah, well, that's why I mean, I understand people can make a lot of money in real estate. After I've just learned what I've learned in the stock market and getting hammered and then making money, I'm all about the stock market.
There's a little bit of a crackdown going on that now. And we're starting to kind of see some of the. It's just not logical. People are complaining about it when they're selling and buying. Like like what I said before. It's like I don't understand how I have to pay the realtor that sold my house something. The realtor that arranged the buying of my house.
Who arranged the buying and the selling. Both of them get 3%.
That's wrong because
24 grand on.
That's the agency problem. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's the agency problem. I hired an agent to represent me. That other agent doesn't represent me, yet I have to pay them. Right? Mm-hmm. What?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I've talked to these guys about this shit. So
they're not my agent. They're not acting in my best interest.
No,
they're not. They're acting opposite to my best interest.
If it's lower than 3%, yeah, they're not going to act.
No. The people who are showing my house, okay, to their customers that want to buy, right, would never act in my interest. They'd want to lowball me, yet I pay them when I sell my house. They get something from me. I'm like, no, they're not my agent. I have an agent.
Yeah, you're financing them too.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's like a kickback. Right? It's like, hey, I'll sweeten the pot a little bit. Here, come over here, look at, like, I don't know, come over here. You know, it's an incentive, but for the wrong reason, and it's coming from the wrong pot.
Well, that's why I think the future of the real estate agent is going to dramatically change to just a platform where you got agentless platforms.
You want to, in today's digital world, what is my agent doing for me that garners that much of a fee? And I'm going to piss off a lot of real estate agents because some of them work really hard.
And some of them have been on this podcast and they listen
too. But I'll tell you what, honestly, me as a homeowner that wants to sell my home, tell me. I just want to know, and I want you to explain it. And is it worth getting paid? I mean, is it worth that in today? If it's a seller's market, it depends on the market, right? Mm-hmm. If it's a seller's market, they show up, right? They take my information, they put it online, they stick it in their computer, and then I got an offer the next day and they get paid. They didn't work too hard, did they?
No. And especially now with buyers buying shit without even looking at it. Right, because with interest rates right now, we had a little bit of a issue with demand, right? Mm-hmm. And interest rates starting to go up, but still fairly low. What happens in that atmosphere? Bidders wars, right? So you got
I like that piece of real estate over there. I really want to buy it. But me and 6 other, I got to bend over backwards, give them more than they want, or, in order to even get my bid considered, over asking, of course. Okay. But
it's jacking up all the comparables.
And when I have to like seriously talk to my agent and go, what's going to be the winning bid on that one? And that's where their money comes in. That's where they earn their money. They go, you're not going to get that property unless you're 10 or 20% above because the market's this way. That's what I need an agent for. That's what they get paid for. But in a seller's market, you got a property. I think what you're using, and we talked about this before, this is where their expertise comes in too. And they go, me not knowing, I hire an agent. What do I sell my house for? I mean, it's appraised for this on Zillow. It's this. Mm-hmm. But that's where I need them to like, well, when do you need to get out? That's where an agent makes their money, right? Like they tailor it to your situation. I think that's what they'll kind of tell you too. But some of these large sellers markets where their demand's really high and you don't have a whole lot of, I can guess within a few $1,000s here and there, and it won't even make any difference. Like I can put let's just say I'm living in a neighborhood and I put 400 on my house. Okay. And Zillow says that I just put 400 on it. I can kind of gauge too. There's another number that gets attached to your house for property taxes that you get to use to judge. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not that stupid. Or you can look up yourself, and Zillow kind of does this anyway. What did my neighbor's house sell for a year ago? What's the climate now? It's about this. So not rocket science, okay? Not that, right? So here again, I could probably guess 412. And then I can lower the price if it doesn't sell right. Do I need to get out by a month from now? Do I need to get out by 6 months from now? Or am I just playing the market and I don't care, right? Those questions, an agent will kind of help you dial in the price you should put on the house, and maybe the price you should accept, the bid you should accept, right? But in a seller's market, it's crazy how much.
It would seem like that would be more of the appraiser's job than the agent's job.
Right.
Because the appraiser, and I realize that was a different part of it too.
Yeah.
Because there's a real estate
You're going to pay for that sucker.
And then there's an appraiser.
Right.
And then there's an inspector.
So what's the agent doing?
I think they're supposed to just be your marketer / Airbnb guy.
It's like, can you imagine something? Okay,
shit, we're at 3:20.
Are you getting
we need to get going. Okay. Yeah, I got a thing at 4. So
let me finish up this thought a little bit. Can you think of another scenario where people are just standing in line to buy what you're selling, and somebody comes in and goes like, hey, want to pay me 2-3% to sell what you can already go into the open market and sell yourself? I think that's where a lot of people are at this real estate agent. Mm-hmm. I can list this house myself on the MLS. I can do all this other stuff. So what am I getting for the bang for the buck? And it's hard to explain. I think real estate agents are going to want to kill me. I get it. But I think it's time. A lot of other people, you have to be licensed. You have to know what's going on. You have to help and coordinate some things. But I'm thinking, and it's competitive. So I understand a little bit about what it is. I get that. But then there's a whole lot of other people out there struggling to make a living. Like, what is this deal? Why are we doing this? How much? And then good people that paid a lot of good money for their homes and need to maybe go buy another home with that. And does that warrant what you're really making? I mean, it's just honest. It's an honest question. Like, do you need to get paid $500 an hour for what you do? Because if you come in here and I sell it the next day, and you take 3%, what is that? Right? Or you take 1.5% or whatever it is, 1.6%.
On $500,000.
So, straight up fees? Why does it have to be based off the price of the home?
And my question is, at what? I know they'll get mad, but it's like, what particular brains or talent does it take to become one?
That too, like, I understand why you have to pay. Like, you're having a surgery done and you have a surgeon, and that costs a lot of money because of all the things that have to be in, and all the education and all the stuff that's supporting that. But when it comes to stuff like this, it's like, I don't know.
I think the answer in the question lies to the fact that there's just bigger banks, and that's what the banks want, because they're the one. Unless you're for sale by owner, you can do that and you'll save a lot of money. But
the banks want it, like,
yeah. They want the damn title insurance. They want the damn two real estate agents getting 3% at the end of the day, because they know where to point the finger for the chain of custody.
Okay,
in case issues go wrong.
Those are lessons learned, and reasons for those things. It's when some of those things become obsolete that we need to kind of call them out. Okay, there may be we're not. Right, you can have people call in or do whatever you want, or email you, but there's probably I understand that there's some pretty valid reasons why we title insure, because if that title doesn't get transferred properly, or you buy something and you buy something for somebody and it looks like a title that you have, or the transaction goes through and somebody goes, you don't really own that. Mm-hmm. For somebody to have to go research that and make sure it's okay, all right? Or there's a lien on it that you didn't quite know about, or that's probably from the other seller. But you know what I mean? Like, so title. I'm betting you and I, we do
giving the better point for title insurance.
If you do our due diligence and we do some research into that, you'll find out that there's some pretty valid cases for that stuff to go on. I don't mind paying any of that stuff. It doesn't really, but I think
$1,000.
What you're talking about is when you go through that transaction, okay? And this is where I had my point. Someone needs to explain to you as a customer exactly what that's for, and it needs to make sense to you. It's called truth in borrowing, truth in selling, truth in lending.
Being a
right?
fiduciary to consumer
Me,
awareness.
in this process, you have plenty of agency, title agents working for you, the real estate agents working for you. A good real estate agent should be able to even explain that to you. Okay, and they probably will. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't have a problem. I had a problem with the excise tax because I was like, what?
Yeah, no, I get you. It's
explain
like,
to me where
I
that
think
comes
of it
from.
like a brokerage tax.
I don't know.
But yeah, I mean,
it's a tax for just being here.
Yeah, we gotta get rolling because it's 3:30. I got a thing at 4. So where can everybody find you? Where can they find John?
I don't know.
LinkedIn?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay, you can find John at LinkedIn if you want some great data analytics.
Sure.
And help out his and my
quest for the next thing I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, if you want some legit data mining done by John, you get Data Mining John on. Yeah. He'll get you.
It's a passion.
All right, guys. Be sure to like, subscribe, smash that bell for more data-driven updates. Bye.